This girl and her friend discovered an unusual crowd gathered below a tall building. Everyone was looking upwards. Her friend quickly ran to the rooftop while the girl stood there crying helplessly. It turned out her father was intending to end his own life. Just as he was saying his last words to his daughter, her friend arrived. However, the friend was too late to stop her father's desperate act. Watching her father's body fall to the ground, So-min was speechless with shock. She had just lost her mother, and now she had lost her father as well. All these tragedies began in less than a month. So-min dreamed of becoming an actress, but her mother opposed it. So-min dropped out of university to pursue her dream. That day when her mother came home and found So-min still taking sleeping pills, she scolded her, thinking her daughter's life would be ruined. But So-min asked, "How are you living now, Mom?" To So-min, her mother's life, a life without ever daring to dream, was far more pitiful. After saying that, So-min left the boarding house. That afternoon, So-min stood in front of a restaurant. She saw her mother busy cooking. She placed her scarf and concert tickets on the counter. Soon after, her father came running to cheer her on. He even promised to go to the concert with So-min's mother. Then So-min left to prepare for the performance. That evening, a gangster arrived in a car with a suitcase containing bags of white powder. He then opened the bag full of money. He took a deep breath, savoring the scent of the money. A moment later, the driver suddenly slammed on the brakes. He informed the gang leader that the police were conducting a surprise inspection ahead. Sok-gu immediately ordered the driver to accelerate. At this time, Inspector Jong-hun was also instructing the patrol officers to check the car behind them. Sok-gu then ordered the driver to get out of the car to attract attention. He even stuffed a bag of white powder into the driver's mouth. When the driver got out, Sok-gu got into the driver's seat and rammed straight into a traffic police officer. He then swerved, sending the officer flying to the ground. Seeing this, Jong-hun immediately attached an emergency siren to the car. He and many other police officers quickly chased after the gang leader. But at an intersection, Sok-gu escaped, while the other police cars were blocked by traffic. Because of this, Sok-gu looked triumphant. Meanwhile, Hyunjin was waiting for his wife to arrive at the theater. Oh-min only saw her father appear, so she seemed quite sad. She had to go back inside to prepare for the performance. Later, Hyunjin received a call from his wife and scolded her for buying flowers instead of attending the performance. When he reminded her that the performance would be closed, she couldn't hear him because her phone was malfunctioning. Mi-young then went to another flower shop. She wanted to choose a bouquet to give her daughter after the performance. She saw some beautiful camellias and decided to buy them. A little later, the ticket checker announced that the shop would close in a minute, so Hyunjin went inside alone. By now, Hyunjin's wife had finished buying the flowers, but she couldn't reach her husband anymore because her phone was malfunctioning again. A little while later, she started crossing the street, but unfortunately, the sole of her shoe came off right in the middle of the road. Just then, Sok-gu drove up. Lost in thought, he carelessly crashed into Mi-yang. She was thrown into the air and landed on the hood of the car. Finally, she rolled onto the road and lay motionless. At the same time on stage, So-min was playing a young mother being abused by her violent husband. When the husband tried to throw their son down, So-min, playing the mother, stabbed him with a knife. The knife fell, signaling an ominous sign. Meanwhile, Sok-gu was furious at being caught in such a predicament. He got out of the car and used his foot to push the person he had just hit. Noticing no one around, he dragged Mi-young to the side of the road. He tried to leave, but Mi-young grabbed his leg. She tried to explain that it was her daughter's first leading role, and she had to go watch her daughter perform. Sok-gu immediately said it had nothing to do with him. But suddenly he turned back and said that her voice was also very persuasive. Then he decided to pull Mi-young to his car. He put her in the trunk and coldly closed it. At this time, So-min also came out onto the stage to greet the audience. However, she only saw her father appearing to cheer her on. After So-min came out, her father also approached and congratulated his daughter for doing well in the performance. When So-min looked around, as if searching for someone, her father said that her mother had been with him earlier, but she had separated midway through. He would try calling her to see what was going on. After saying that, he called his wife. Mi-young's phone also rang. She tried to answer but couldn't. When the ringing stopped, Hyunjin told her daughter that her mother had gone to buy flowers. Although her mother often said harsh things, she really wanted to see So-min perform on stage. At the restaurant, she frequently boasted about her daughter to customers. So-min told her father not to try to explain anymore. She just wanted him to go out to eat with her. Meanwhile, Sok-gu drove to a harbor. He instructed one of his subordinates to handle the car. But then he remembered the woman in the back, so he opened the trunk to wake her up, but she remained motionless. A while later, Mi-young was locked in a box on a boat. She used all her strength to grab her phone and call the police. Sok-gu heard her breathing, so he ordered his subordinate to open the box. But the subordinate saw Mi-young still lying motionless. When the box was closed, Mi-young remembered her husband's instructions. If she pressed the power button 3 times in a row, an SOS message would be sent to his phone. Mi-young tried to perform that action, but she was out of range, and the box door unexpectedly opened again. A week later, So-min and her father went around handing out flyers, looking for a missing relative, but they only received indifference from passersby. Suddenly, Hyunjin received a phone call from a stranger. This person said they had seen the person Hyunjin was looking for. When Hyunjin hurriedly said he would be at the meeting place right away, his daughter snatched the phone and ended the call. So-min helplessly asked why her father was always being deceived. She reminded him not to trust people so easily, unless he actually heard his mother's voice. Now Haidam also arrived. So-min immediately asked her friend to help take her father home. Haidam also helped So-min's father leave. The female police officer told So-min that the image of her mother leaving the flower shop was her last known trace. The police also couldn't find any dashcam footage of her. Currently, Mi-young is classified as a runaway, so they have no legal basis to track her location. So-min argued that her mother had bought flowers for her daughter, so saying she ran away from home was unreasonable. However, the female police officer continued to use legal arguments. At this time, Inspector Jung-hoon was also present at the police station and heard the argument inside. So-min was visibly upset when the female police officer kept telling her to wait for her mother to come home. Jung-hoon recognized the person and called out So-min's name. Meanwhile, at home, Hyunjin received a call from his wife's phone number. He quickly answered and indeed heard his wife's voice. She said she had been hit by a car. The driver also claimed he had accidentally hit Hyunjin's wife. He saw she was dying and couldn't bear to leave her behind, but he felt too bad about paying to take her to the hospital. Since no one saw anything, he took her to his place. To put it bluntly, he wanted Hyunjin to pay him a sum of money to get his wife back. When Hyunjin asked if he was sure it was his wife, the driver clicked a button to play his wife's voice. When Hyunjin asked where his wife had been hit by the car, he heard her say it was at the intersection near where she went to buy flowers. The perpetrator continued to threaten Hyunjin to prevent him from reporting to the police. He even sent Hyunjin a picture of his wife lying unconscious in a wooden crate. He was also running a voice-altering program. Hyunjin immediately begged the perpetrator to spare his wife, promising not to report to the police. The perpetrator then asked Hyunjin how much money he would give him. Meanwhile, Inspector Jung-hoon offered So-min a can of soda. He reminisced about their time in college. At that time, So-min was the fittest of the new students. He felt sorry for her because she suddenly dropped out of school. He also inquired about her family situation. So-min said her mother had gone missing a week earlier at the intersection in the Songnae Industrial Park. Jung-hoon then asked what time it happened. So-min confirmed it was at 6 p.m. when her mother left the flower shop. Jung-hoon then went to the scene. Here he saw tire tracks still imprinted on the road and fallen flower petals on the ground. Meanwhile, Hyunjin rushed to the bank. Unable to wait for the elevator, he climbed the stairs. His phone remained connected to his wife's number. The perpetrator was tracking his location and had asked Hyunjin to get an OTP card. If the money wasn't in the account by 4:10 p.m., he threatened to have his wife killed. The bank employee explained that increasing the OTP limit would allow transfers of 100 million won at a time and 500 million won in a day. Noticing the man's urgency, she asked if he had recently received any calls from someone claiming to be a prosecutor or police officer. Hyunjin shouted, saying that he just wanted to withdraw his money and was in a hurry, so he needed to get it done quickly. Once Hyunjin obtained the OTP code, he immediately transferred 50 million won. The perpetrator received notification that the money had been sent. He told Hyunjin to go home and wait until he called back. Hyunjin could only beg the perpetrator not to deceive him. The culprit promised to call back at 6 p.m. and then hastily hung up. Meanwhile, Inspector Jung-hoon showed a picture of Mi-young along with the flowers he had collected at the scene. The florist confirmed that these were indeed the camellias Mi-young had bought. The florist remembered Mi-young saying she really liked them. Jung-hoon then told So-min that the time his car passed the accident site and the time So-min's mother left the flower shop for the accident site seemed to coincide. However, Jung-hoon still had no concrete clues, so Min checked her phone and found a missed call from her mother's number. She called back, but couldn't get through. Jung-hoon looked at the number and said that the culprit seemed to have used spoofing software to make the call. They absolutely had to tell So-min's father not to answer any calls from her mother. At home, Hyunjin continued to receive calls from his wife. He immediately asked if she had gotten out safely so he could come pick her up, but the person on the other end of the line said she could never leave. She didn't expect him to have so much money. The man said he would use it wisely. She also wanted to hear her daughter's voice one last time, but it was probably impossible. At this point, Hyunjin realized it wasn't his wife and questioned her. Seok-gu then used his real voice and exclaimed that this voice mimicking technology was really good. The world is becoming more modern, so he can do anything. Hyunjin loudly said he would send Seok-gu to jail. But Seok-gu said that perhaps Hyunjin was the one who should hear that now. From now on, Hyunjin's name would be the subject of endless lawsuits. It turned out he had hacked Hyunjin's bank account. Immediately, Hyunjin received a series of messages notifying her of the disbursed funds. Seok-gu had used Hyunjin's account to borrow money from the bank, and he also introduced himself as the head of a debt collection team. Finally, So-min and Jong-hoon returned home. So-min picked up her father's phone. She noticed that her father had taken out a 50 million won loan in his name and had received 2 calls from her mother's number. She panicked and ran outside to look for her father. When she reached a high-rise building, she witnessed her father end his own life. Meanwhile, the gang leader Seok-gu was still sitting comfortably with Director Kim. He presented Director Kim with a suitcase full of money. Seok-gu also instructed the director to send someone more reliable next time, as sending people who only worked for a few days before running away wasn't good at all. Director Kim, delighted with the money, introduced Seok-gu to his new subordinate Sung-tae. In the criminal underworld, Sung-tae knew everything from phone numbers and ledgers to credit card numbers. Hearing this, Seok-gu raised his glass to toast his new subordinate. Sung-tae quickly knelt before the gang leader to receive the drink, promising to supply the goods adequately. The 3 of them celebrated together with great enjoyment. Afterward, Seok-gu decided to test Sung-tae's abilities. He asked Sung-tae to do something for him, promising a substantial reward. Sung-tae smiled happily. In the following days, So-min sadly released her deceased father's ashes into the river. After finishing, she went to see Jong-hoon. He returned her father's belongings to her after the investigation was complete. As soon as Jong-hoon sat down beside her, he told her that based on her father's phone history, the police confirmed that her mother's disappearance was also related to the Il-seon gang. The case had been transferred to Jong-hoon's team for handling. So-min said nothing, but opened the box and took out her father's phone. Jong-hoon patted her shoulder to comfort her. He told her to let him know immediately if her mother called. Before he could finish, So-min interrupted him. She asked if those bastards would also be punished. According to the law, if caught, the subordinates would receive 5 years in prison and the leader 10 right. If they served their sentences, according to the law, they would have atoned for their crimes. But So-min believed it wasn't a punishment, it was an exemption obtained through investing time. She also didn't believe in the so-called justice of the law. As soon as she finished speaking, she stood up to leave. But Jong-hoon grabbed her hand. He told her to trust him, not to trust the law, but to trust him because he thought he might soon find her mother. Hearing this, So-min hurriedly asked where her mother was. She had no idea her mother had been dealt with by the Il-seon gang. Their henchmen had taken her mother's wallet and phone. After taking the important things, they dragged her away to dispose of her. Meanwhile, the gang leader Seok-gu watched with amusement. In fact, Jong-hoon had already found a clue about Mi Yang. A local resident reported that he had seen the woman in the missing person flyer. This man claimed he had seen Mi Yang with his own eyes. One day he saw her at Seongnam Crossing Station, and that afternoon he saw her again at City Hall Station. Each time he saw her wearing the same outfit as in the missing person flyer. Jong-hoon found it increasingly strange. He continued to ask if the man had seen Mi Yang anywhere other than the train station. The man said he had seen her go into a building near Gidong Elementary School. After hearing this, Jong-hoon glanced at his subordinate, signaling him to go check. The subordinate nodded in understanding and left. Meanwhile, So-min was lying on the floor, immersed in grief. She recalled the memory of telling her mother that she would be dropping out of school to become an actress. Her mother had objected and scolded her for withdrawing her application without any prior notice. Her mother wouldn't even listen to her explanation. Her mother insisted that her daughter go to school to withdraw her withdrawal request. When So-min refused to go, her mother started yelling at her. The mother even threatened to go to the school herself, kneeling and begging them to withdraw her daughter's withdrawal request. So-min pleaded with her mother repeatedly, but she wouldn't listen. Feeling utterly helpless, she yelled at her mother and stormed out of the house in anger. Her mother, meanwhile, sat on the sofa and sobbed uncontrollably. She only had one daughter, and now her daughter was behaving like this. After reminiscing, So-min warily sat up. She took out some some sleeping pills, intending to take a few. But before she could take them, her phone rang. Seeing that it was her mother calling, So-min was surprised. As soon as she answered, she heard her mother's cries for help on the other end of the line. So-min knew this was a scam. She immediately asked who was on the other end and where her mother was. The scammer on the other end stopped pretending. He said that her mother was always by her beloved daughter's side. So-min couldn't hold back any longer and cursed. The scammer calmly insisted that what he had just said was true. The mother she was looking for was always nearby, so she should search carefully. After saying that, the scammer quickly hung up. Even though So-min tried calling back, she couldn't get through, so she opened her father's box and took out his phone to check. After opening it, she saw the urgent message her mother had sent to her father earlier. So-min pressed the phone 3 times to send an urgent message. Immediately her mother's phone replied with an urgent message and its location on the map. After learning the location was the So-min intersection, So-min went there to search. There she saw a figure that looked very much like her mother. She rushed into the train station to chase after the person. But after running a short distance, she bumped into a passerby and tripped. So-min wasn't about to give up, so she got up and continued running. But once outside, she lost sight of the woman. While she was looking around, her father's phone rang. This time the location was in a different area. So-min hurried there and saw a familiar figure flash past, so she chased after the woman with all her might. Reaching the end of the alley, she couldn't see the person anymore. As she looked around, she saw the figure disappear through the trees in front of her. At the same time, Jung-hoon was discussing the man's story with his colleague. He found it very illogical because the missing person was wearing the same clothes as the day she disappeared, and she was wandering around her neighborhood every day. This must be the work of a mastermind. Dong-chan agreed with Jung-hoon's statement. He said he had investigated the commercial building in front of Gidong Elementary School. Then he handed the phone to Jung-hoon and continued, saying it was the Olymp Telecom prepaid phone store. He had investigated and found the store very suspicious because its sales were unreasonably high. Jung-hoon also noticed something unusual about the store. He suspected they were illegally collecting personal information and selling it through junk phones. Furthermore, they were using missing persons as distributors of these junk phones. After saying this, Jung-hoon threw the phone back to his colleague. The two went to investigate together. Meanwhile, the woman dressed like Mi Yang went into the public restroom to change clothes. She was the same Chinese woman So-min had met and helped at the phone store. Previously, So-min had received a message from director Sung Tae asking her to pick up her performance costumes. However, when So-min asked if he would pay her, the director said he didn't have money that day and would give it to her later. So-min realized she had been taken advantage of again, but she was determined to get her payment. She then went to a phone store to pick up her costumes. The shopkeeper showed her the bag containing the costumes. She overheard the shopkeeper selling a phone to a Chinese customer. He even offered expensive packages, but the customer only wanted a basic plan. The shopkeeper became annoyed and asked if the customer had a daughter in China. If so, she should sign up for the plan he suggested. He then snatched the customer's card to pay. Seeing this, So-min pretended to be the customer's daughter and asked the shopkeeper for the cheapest SIM card. As she stepped outside, the passenger thanked So-min for her help. Seeing the woman's hands were pale from the cold, So-min took out a hand warmer. The passenger, however, recoiled in surprise. So-min gently placed the hand warmer in her hand. Suddenly, the woman mentioned that her son was attending Seongsu High School and his name was Hong Ah. So-min nodded in greeting and walked away. She then left the Olymp Telecom bag in a locker. A while later, when So-min returned to the theater troupe, Hae-dam informed her that director Sung Tae was looking for her. Hae-dam then began recounting how the actors in the troupe had to serve Sung Tae and his wife just to get minor roles. So-min heard this and immediately said she would sell everything in the bag she had just taken to get back the money she was cheated out of. A little later, the director came in looking for So-min. He was very angry because what So-min brought back was a brick. Hae-dam quickly stopped So-min from confronting the director. Back in reality, as the Chinese woman was leaving, So-min grabbed her by the collar to question her. So-min asked the woman who she was and why she was impersonating her mother. The Chinese woman replied that she was only following her boss's orders. After saying that, she pushed So-min's hand away and tried to run off. But So-min wasn't going to let her go so easily. She held on to the woman tightly and asked where her mother was. The Chinese woman, not wanting any more trouble, pushed So-min away and hit So-min with a nearby trash can. She apologized to So-min and explained that she only wanted to save her son and that she had no other choice. After saying that, she quickly ran away with a backpack bearing the words Olymp Telecom. Seeing those words, So-min suddenly remembered the bag the director had asked her to get earlier, as it also had the words Olymp Telecom on it. That night, police cars raided the Olymp Telecom store. At that moment, the Chinese woman also arrived. As soon as she saw the police, she quickly hid. Jong-hun showed the search warrant to the shop owner. He introduced himself as being from the telephone fraud investigation team of the Seongnam Police Department. He had received information that the store was connected to a criminal organization. The shop owner quickly said there was nothing, but Jong-hun didn't want to say much. He immediately ordered his subordinates to search all important invoices and documents. The Chinese woman, seeing that the situation was not good, quickly left through another exit to escape. She didn't know Jong-hun had seen her suspicious figure through the glass. But then she came face to face with a young man wearing glasses. He even held up his phone and asked if the dress in the picture was white or blue. The Chinese woman found it annoying. She told the young man to get lost in Chinese. Du Jin replied in Chinese, surprising her. She asked who Du Jin was. Suddenly Jong-hun approached from behind and snatched her backpack. After emptying it, he found Mi-yeon's clothes and several disposable phones. He immediately handcuffed the Chinese woman. She was arrested for violating telecommunications laws. He then called Mi-yeon's number, but couldn't reach her. Du Jin quickly pulled out a phone from the Chinese woman's pocket. Jong-hun took the phone, turned it on, and called Mi-yeon's number again. After confirming that it was indeed Mi-yeon's phone, he cursed the despicable people who used the victim's phone as a mobile phone base station. The Chinese woman and those involved were then taken away in a police car. It turned out So-min had been secretly observing from a distance all this time. She guessed that the Chinese woman was connected to the Ilseom gang. If so, that meant the wretched director was also involved. Just as Jong-hun was bringing the suspect back, he received a call from the team leader. It turned out there was a personnel announcement that Jong-hun had been demoted. Specifically, Jong-hun would be transferred from the phone fraud prevention team to the public safety and order department. The team leader sighed, saying he had advised Jong-hun not to cause trouble. The team leader also told Jong-hun to come to the chief's office immediately, as he had been summoned. Jong-hun immediately went to see the chief. As soon as he entered the office, Jong-hun called the chief Dad. The chief was surprised and delighted, as it had been a long time since his son had called him Dad. At this point, the commander asked permission to leave so the chief and his son could talk, but Jong-hun quickly refused, saying he would go outside to let the chief and commander talk, as he had nothing to say to someone who used their authority to demote his son. After saying this, Jong-hun bowed to the two men and turned to leave. The chief could only chuckle to ease the awkwardness. He marveled that his son's temperament had never changed. Then the smile on his face quickly disappeared. As Jong-hun went outside, the shop owner walked past him with an arrogant expression. He immediately asked his colleague where the shop owner and his accomplices had been taken. Dong-chan said that the team leader would investigate the case and proceed without detention. It seemed the superiors wanted to handle it as quietly as possible. The more Jong-hun listened, the more irritated he became. He returned to his desk and opened the drawer. At that moment, Jong-hun saw the familiar badge. The more he looked, the angrier he became, so he stood up and left. He even told his colleagues not to look for him anymore. Meanwhile, So-min went to the locker at the train station to retrieve the director's bag. But when she opened the locker, she couldn't find it. So she went to the lost and found office to retrieve it. Items kept in the locker for too long are sent there and destroyed after 5 days if not claimed. Luckily, So-min arrived just in time and retrieved the bag. At the same time, a colleague hurriedly chased after Jong-hun. He wanted to talk about his investigation into a drug dealer from the Ilm gang. After investigating, he obtained a preliminary map of the gang's hierarchy. Clearly, there was another boss above Seok-gu, and below him were many subordinates playing various roles, some providing manpower, others supplying broadcasting stations and signal converters. Looking at the diagram, Jong-hun set the goal of capturing Seok-gu. Only then could they apprehend both the boss and his subordinates. Dong-chan also mentioned hearing rumors about the gang's activities in the Wari port area. Perhaps that was their entry point into China. Upon hearing this, Jong-hun wanted to go arrest the criminals immediately, but Dong-chan quickly stopped him. They hadn't gathered any evidence yet, nor had they discovered any illegal activity. Furthermore, if the captain found out Dong-chan told Jong-hun about this, both of them would be in trouble. Jong-hun could only go outside to get some fresh air to calm down. At the same time, Sung-tae had just finished a meeting with the scriptwriters. Suddenly, So-min appeared out of nowhere and threw his bag to the ground. She directly asked if he worked for the Ilseom gang. Sung-tae explained to the writers that there had been a misunderstanding. He told them to go eat first and that he would follow later. After they left, Sung-tae grabbed So-min's shirt and dragged her into the office. Then he grabbed her neck and pinned her to the desk as a warning. So-min grabbed a potted plant from the desk and smashed it hard against the director's head. Sung-tae lay on the floor in pain. So-min restrained him and questioned him about her mother's whereabouts. The director stubbornly claimed he didn't know, so So-min took out her phone and showed him a picture of her mother. She asked again. Only then did Sung-tae realize it was So-min's mother. After So-min nearly broke his arm, he finally confessed where the dragon sacrifice ceremony was being held. The kidnappers had taken her mother to the dragon in the stream. That's all he knew. Afterward, So-min returned home and began searching for the location the director had mentioned. Finally, she found Wari Port on the map. The metal containers around the area contained many bags from Olymp Telecom. Not only that, So-min also saw the words Wari Dragon Sacrifice Ceremony on a banner at the port. The next day, Jong-hun received news from So-min and immediately drove to Wari Port. To be sure, Jong-hun also called the Coast Guard to ask for their cooperation in the search for the missing person, as the victim's last known location was near Wari Port. Upon receiving the news, the Coast Guard quickly dispatched a team to search for Mrs. Kim. Less than a few hours later, they found a metal container at the bottom of the sea. When So-min arrived at the scene, she only saw the forensic team photographing her mother's charred clothes. She screamed for her mother in overwhelming grief. Jong-hun, witnessing this, was also heartbroken. After losing both her parents, So-min returned home to sort through her belongings. She found one of her mother's bags, inside which was a letter from her mother, expressing her hope that it would help her. Her mother also apologized to So-min. It turned out that when she visited her daughter, she had intended to leave the letter on the table, but after some thought, she felt she couldn't do it, so she put the letter inside the bag instead. So-min opened it to see what was inside, a gold necklace. The longer she stayed indoors, the sadder So-min became, so she went outside to get some fresh air. Soon as she stepped out the door, she saw a package placed in front of her house. It had been sent from the general store. So-min tore open the box to see what was inside, but only found a brick. She checked the sender's phone number and took out her phone to dial. Midway through dialing, she realized this wasn't safe, so she tore off the paper label on the package. Then she ran to the phone booth. There she dialed the number on the package. As soon as the phone answered, a familiar voice, her mother's, came to the other end. The person on the other end identified themselves as the manager of the general store. So-min was speechless with shock. At that moment, Sok-gu also turned off the voice-altering device. He spoke directly to So-min in his real voice. He reiterated that he had said her mother was always right beside her. He knew the police would use voice analysis technology to catch him, so he had been thinking of ways to counter it. He realized that all he needed to do was impersonate someone else, so he borrowed So-min's mother's voice. After hearing this, So-min couldn't control her anger. She cursed the leader directly, but he challenged her, saying that as long as the full payment was made, everything would be fine. So-min was still confused when a woman suddenly appeared and grabbed her. The woman cursed and asked where So-min's mother was hiding. So-min quickly pushed her to the ground. Only then did the woman say that So-min's mother had turned her son into a criminal. Hearing this, So-min became even more confused. So-min immediately demanded an explanation from the woman. She also took out her phone and showed So-min the recruitment message from Mi-yang. Her son read the message and went to work, but now he's become a criminal. Only then did So-min understand the situation. She guessed the criminals had impersonated her mother to scam people. Meanwhile, Sok-gu was discussing business with his subordinate. He was worried about the male police officer investigating the previous car accident. The subordinate reassured him that Chairman Sung had handled the matter by transferring the officer. However, the development fund sent to Chairman Sung monthly was being used to expand the gang's influence in Qingdao. It seemed he was doing this to control the Ilseom gang. Hearing this, Sok-gu became angry, saying that Chairman Sung had always been like that. As he spoke, he recalled the past, when Chairman Sung decided to cooperate with a woman. If it weren't for her, Sok-gu would have long since taken control of everything. After speaking, Sok-gu ordered his subordinates to contact the Macau casinos. He wanted to ask if they could contact the Singapore side. It was time for him to act independently. Meanwhile, So-min was still searching for her mother's name online. Sure enough, it yielded search results about phone scams. The noteworthy point was that the voice from the calls all belonged to a manager named Kim Mi-yang. After reading the article, So-min played the voice recording, and it sounded exactly like her mother's voice. The criminals had used her mother's voice to scam people looking for jobs. They had an entire system dedicated to phone scams. So-min began to ponder where to look for clues. news. She suddenly remembered what the Chinese woman had said earlier. The woman had mentioned her boss and her son. So-min suddenly appeared. She asked if he was home. It turned out that he had borrowed money from the Il-seong gang because he was being bullied by his friends. They gave Homa 2 options: pay the debt immediately or have his hand chopped off. But Homa's mother didn't have that much money readily available. She also didn't want her son to have his hand chopped off. So the gangsters made a deal. Mrs. In had to be willing to do whatever they told her to do. That's when everything started. So Min also told Homa that his mother had helped the scammers over the phone to pay off her son's debt, and now she was a criminal. Her crime would carry at least 2 years in prison. After saying that, So Min gave Homa the phone containing the fake manager Kim's number. Mrs. In was cleaning the shop when she received a debt reminder message from the bank. After reading it, she just sighed and put the phone in her pocket. Just then a customer entered the shop. Mrs. In turned to greet the customer and accidentally knocked a glass on the table to the ground. She bent down to pick up the broken pieces, but because she wasn't careful, she injured her finger. Despite the pain, Miss In continued to pick them up. So Min kindly bent down to help her. So Min also reminded Mrs. In to be careful, because if Mrs. In died from excessive blood loss, it would be quite troublesome for So Min. Afterwards, the two went outside to talk more easily. Feeling guilty, Mrs. In apologized to So Min. But what So Min wanted to know now was who to contact to meet the leader. If Mrs. In refused to speak, she would have to watch her son being kidnapped. While the two were talking, Homa was carrying out the task assigned to her by the scammers. After Homa received the cash from the paper bag, he immediately took a taxi to the next location. The radio in the taxi was broadcasting news about phone scams. Hearing this, Homa was very scared, but he had no other choice. After arriving at the bank, Homa called the scammers to receive his next task, transferring the received cash to their account. Just as Homa stood at the ATM, a woman approached him, but Homa didn't think much of it and continued with his assigned task. Meanwhile, Mrs. In frantically called her son but couldn't get through. So Min calmly said that if Mrs. In could take advantage of her mother, she also had the right to take advantage of Mrs. In's son. As soon as So Min finished speaking, Mrs. In grabbed her by the collar and started cursing at her terribly. Then, Mrs. In started crying helplessly. So Min noticed that the Chinese woman was still being stubborn, so she took out her phone to call the police. Mrs. In quickly snatched the phone back, but Mrs. In still refused to say anything. Even after So Min took the phone back, Mrs. In still wouldn't say anything. So Min gave up trying to care and turned to leave. At that moment, Mrs. In mentioned the name of Director Kim. He was the one who brought the children to the call center, and only through Director Kim could they meet the leader. After getting the information she wanted, So Min texted Haidam, who then turned to stop Homa. Haidam snatched back the phone and canceled the top-up transaction. Mrs. In sat on the ground crying, lamenting that she had to follow the scammer's orders, otherwise her son's life would be in danger. As a mother, she couldn't do anything else. So Min then bent down and offered to cooperate with Mrs. In to deal with the scammers. But Mrs. In said it wouldn't be easy, from going to China to dealing with the leader. In the following days, the press began publishing articles criticizing the irresponsible work of the Songgon police station. They claimed that the police had indirectly caused the victims of the phone scam to suffer even more. Some articles even suggested that the Songgon police were colluding with the Il-sung gang. The public became even more confused and lost faith in the government. Because of this news, the captain was angry. He asked who had leaked the information. If this continued, the image of the Songgon police station would be severely damaged. Therefore, within a month, they absolutely had to capture the Il-sung gang. The captain kept scolding the team, completely unaware that the person leaking the information was Jong-hun. He had met with reporters and provided them with the news. After the conversation, Jong-hun called So Min to arrange a meeting. Then the two went to an apartment complex. As they walked, Jong-hun said that in the Il-sung gang, there was only one person who truly frightened Sok-gu, and that person was Kai-soon. She was the only one who could manipulate Sok-gu. Currently, Kai-soon is missing, so Min looked at the fake software on the computer. She curiously asked Jong-hun if he intended to use this woman to approach the Il-sung gang. Jong-hun argued that today's war was a war of intelligence and technology. If the opponent deceived them, they would deceive the opponent in return, because they were determined to take revenge. So Min wondered how they would do it. Suddenly, Dojin appeared out of nowhere, saying they would use deepfake technology. Jong-hun quickly introduced Dojin to So Min, explaining that he was the source of the information. Dojin said he would try using deepfake technology to deal with Director Kim. As soon as he finished speaking, he held out his hand asking for money, explaining that one act of curiosity cost 500 won. That evening, Director Kim returned to the base after finishing work. Annoyed, he observed each room to see if his subordinates were working properly, before finally going into his office office to rest. While feeling frustrated, he received a message from an anonymous account. He asked who it was, but instead of replying, the other party messaged that one act of curiosity cost 501. Director Kim became even more annoyed because he didn't understand what the other party wanted. Unexpectedly, the anonymous account made a video call. Director Kim, undeterred, accepted the call. But when he saw Kai-soon's face, old memories flooded back. He thought Kai-soon was still alive. He didn't know that So-min was using a deepfake to impersonate Kai-soon. At this moment, So-min began to use her acting skills to get into character. Director Kim was astonished, wondering why Kai-soon had suddenly appeared. He had chased her to the cliff years ago and witnessed her fall into the sea. Now he was confused and worried. He demanded to meet Kai-soon in person to talk things over. So-min just laughed with amusement and said that she had come to take revenge for the past. She would tell the bastard who had ordered Director Kim to kill her that she was still alive. She had waited for this day for over 10 years. Director Kim began to feel afraid. He clearly recognized the bastard being referred to as Sok-gu. So-min then exposed his secret scheme of secretly making a large sum of money without Sok-gu's knowledge. When So-min realized she had threatened enough, she ended the call, leaving Director Kim even more worried. The next day, Sung-tae went to Director Kim's base with his bag as usual. Upon arrival, he saw Director Kim scolding a male student for not earning enough money that month. Sung-tae took the bag inside for his subordinate to check. After confirming the money was sufficient, the subordinate signaled to Director Kim. Sung-tae, relieved, went outside. He didn't forget to tease the poor student. He even asked Director Kim why, as the ship owner, he couldn't recruit any capable subordinates in Korea. Director Kim then used a baseball bat to push the director's leg down onto the table. Director Kim said that young people these days can't stand it when something happens to them. At the same time, a subordinate informed Sok-gu that a staff member had escaped from the switchboard the previous night and had been apprehended. He learned that the man had been sent by a South Korean ship owner. Hearing this, Sok-gu was disheartened by Director Kim's incompetence. Director Kim kept sending incompetent individuals who only knew how to run away. Afterwards, Sok-gu called Director Kim and berated him. Director Kim quickly apologized, even kneeling to express his remorse. Sok-gu warned Director Kim not to let this happen again. Unexpectedly, as soon as he hung up, Director Kim cursed Sok-gu terribly. At that moment, Sung-tae came out, said goodbye to Director Kim and left. Unbeknownst to Director Kim, Sung-tae had secretly taken some money from his pocket. He sat in his car, inhaling the scent of the money with satisfaction. Suddenly, a staff member from the theater troupe called. She informed him that a reporter from a partner company was asking about the scale of production for the new film. Sung-tae immediately told her he would soon secure a major investor, and her task was to promote the film as much as possible. He also instructed her to call the high bidder from before to sign the contract right away. He was about to call Olymp Telecom when the employee said that the place was currently full of police, probably because they had done something wrong and were being investigated. Sung-tae hung up. He then called the owner of Olymp Telecom directly. But feeling uneasy, he got out of the car and went somewhere else. At the same time, Director Kim was reprimanding his subordinates. He wanted to find the person who dared to leak information about this business. But no matter how much he beat them, no one would confess. Suddenly, So-min's screams could be heard from outside. She went all the way to Director Kim's base to demand a conversation, but she was stopped by the guard at the door. Just as So-min was about to leave, Director Kim came out and asked what was wrong. Then the two went inside to talk. So-min introduced herself as Chang-ju and said she was currently working for Kai-soon. So-min secretly planted a recording device under the desk when Director Kim wasn't looking. This allowed Jong-hun and Do-jin on the other side to monitor the conversation. The more Director Kim thought about it, the stranger it seemed. Ki-soon suddenly reappeared after more than a decade of disappearance, demanding revenge. Now her subordinates had appeared and said danger was imminent. No matter how he thought about it, Director Kim couldn't believe So-min's words. So he grabbed her chin and asked who she really was. So-min lied, saying she was a spy. Soon currently had 100 subordinates, so she had to use them as spies to regain her former position. Seeing that Director Kim still didn't believe her, So-min explained that she had been living under a Korean name and working in a theater troupe. After saying this, she sent Director Kim photos of her ID and a photo of herself with Sung-tae. Just as Director Kim clicked on the photos to examine them more closely, Do-jin hacked into his phone. Do-jin successfully accessed everything on the phone, including the images recorded by the phone's camera. Director Kim asked why So-min had decided to betray her boss. So Min began to tell her fabricated story. She said that Kai-soon had killed both her parents when she was a child, then took her in and raised her. Now that she was capable, she decided to take revenge and needed a partner. But Director Kim still didn't understand why he had to cooperate with her. So Min said that if it was revealed that Kai-soon was still alive, he would be the first one in trouble. She also noticed another problem. Song-tae was planning to betray Director Kim to save himself. Min said that Song-tae was planning to send staff from the theater troupe so he could usurp Director Kim's position in Korea. Seeing that Director Kim didn't understand what was going on, Min took a piece of paper from her pocket and handed it to him. That paper was a list of theater troupe members who would be sent to China. After reading the list, Director Kim remembered Song-tae's earlier criticism, so Min suggested that Director Kim check it himself while she waited outside. Immediately afterward, Director Kim dialed Song-tae's number. He was unaware that the person on the other end was Jong-hoon, using a deep voice to impersonate Song-tae. So Min also went outside and put on an earpiece to monitor the conversation. From the very beginning, Jong-hoon spoke without using polite language, which aroused Director Kim's suspicion. Jin quickly reminded Jong-hoon that Song-tae always used polite language, so Jong-hoon quickly changed the subject. Jong-hoon said he had imported signal jamming devices. The distributor could order more goods for them. Then Jong-hoon asked why Director Kim had called him. Director Kim invited Jong-hoon to dinner, but Jong-hoon said he was busy and quickly hung up. Director Kim then called his subordinate, who was outside. He ordered the subordinate to locate Song-tae and report back immediately. Not only that, he also had to inform the shipping company that they would be sending more people to China tonight. Meanwhile, Dojin was searching for Song-tae's personal information to get his phone number. After finding it, Jong-hoon dialed the number. He said he was from the Seonan police station's telephone fraud prevention unit. But before Jong-hoon could finish speaking, Song-tae hung up. Jong-hoon couldn't help but laugh. On this side, Song-tae was worried, wondering why the police had called. He assumed the owner of Olymp Telecom had revealed his name, so he looked at his laptop screen to check his flight to Hong Kong. Then he got up, opened the safe to retrieve important items, and put the money into his backpack. Unbeknownst to him, all his actions were being recorded and sent to Director Kim. After seeing the footage, Director Kim hacked Song-tae's bank account. He then transferred 150,000 won into Song-tae's account, intending to cause it to exceed its transaction limit and be frozen. Meanwhile, Song-tae rushed to an ATM to withdraw money, but none of his cards worked. After checking his transaction history, Song-tae saw that someone had transferred 150,000 won into his account. This led to suspicions that Song-tae's account was involved in fraud. At this moment, So-min was discussing the next steps with Jong-hoon and Do-jin. She wondered why today was the day they were supposed to meet to go to China. Jong-hoon explained that it was because tomorrow was the day of the Dragon God worship ceremony. Just as Do-jin was about to interrupt, Jong-hoon quickly covered his mouth. Jong-hoon continued to explain that the ceremony was one of Director Kim's ways of making money. He would go around the fishing villages pretending to be a shaman. The villagers thought they were worshipping a dragon god, but they didn't know that the dragon god was actually the leader Sok-gu. After the ceremony, Director Kim would sit in his car counting the money. Then he would pay the employees who accompanied him, and after the event ended, those employees would go to China. On the day before or after the dragon god worship ceremony, a boat would come to pick them all up. That was also the safest way for them to get to China. At that moment, Jong-hoon's father called, so he excused himself to talk to him. So Min worried that the police would get involved, but Jong-hoon assured her that it wouldn't happen. He said he was just going outside to take the call and would be back soon. After speaking, Jong-hoon removed his earphones, stood up and left. Once Jong-hoon was gone, So Min asked Do-jin to listen carefully to what she was about to say. As soon as Jong-hoon answered the phone, his father scolded him for quitting his job immediately after being demoted. His father demanded that he return to his old position. He also knew that Jong-hoon was the one leaking information to the press and wanted him to take responsibility for it. However, Jong-hoon refused. The police chief asked if the victim's daughter was So-min. The father didn't know what kind of scheme Jong-hoon and So-min were plotting, but he wanted Jong-hoon to think about his friend's safety. He waited for Jong-hoon's answer to see whether he would choose his father or his friend. After saying that, the director abruptly hung up. At that moment, an employee outside came in to announce that Chairman Sung had arrived. The director hurriedly greeted Chairman Sung. Meanwhile, Jong-hoon pondered what to do next. After a moment of thought, Jong-hoon quickly ran off somewhere. So Min had just finished talking to Do-jin and removed her earphones. Suddenly, she saw Director Kim's subordinate standing behind her waiting. Although startled, she tried to remain calm. The subordinate asked her to go inside because Director Kim was was waiting, So Min followed him in, throwing her earphones to the ground. Seeing the scene before her, So Min became even more bewildered, as she hadn't imagined there could be such a professional phone scamming team. She could only sigh before entering Director Kim's office. As soon as the two met, Director Kim expressed his gratitude. Suddenly So Min took out a listening device from under the table and smashed it. Then she knelt down and apologized to Director Kim. She explained that she had been forced to lie by the police. Upon seeing the listening device, Director Kim became enraged and slapped So Min in the face. Just as he was about to pull out a knife to attack her, she spoke up saying this was a good opportunity to repay Seok-gu. Meanwhile, Sung-tae couldn't unlock his account. Desperate, he messaged Lau, the person who had previously transferred 150,000 won to him. However, Lau demanded 300,000 won to unlock the account. Since he still had cash, Sung-tae agreed to the offer. Lau also arranged to meet Sung-tae at a lamppost at 38 Donggang before 1 p.m. After reading the message, Sung-tae rushed to the meeting point. He was unaware that the police had arrived at the theater to conduct a search and seize evidence of the crime. Sung-tae drove to the meeting point and immediately got out of the car to wait. At this time, Lau sent a video of the police searching the office. While Sung-tae was watching, Director Kim called, so he asked the director for some money so he could go to the airport. Director Kim no longer hid his identity. He admitted that he was Lau and that he did this to deal with Sung-tae before Sung-tae could betray him. Immediately afterward, someone arrived and took Sung-tae away. After dealing with Sung-tae, Director Kim asked So Min what her plan was. She said this was an opportunity to refresh Director Kim's image and win Seok-gu's favor. Director Kim could still escape while taking the talent to China. Because she wanted to kill Kai soon, So Min needed Director Kim. She believed Director Kim was more trustworthy than the police. Director Kim then asked what So Min wanted. She said she wanted to join the group he had brought to China. She would play the role of a talented individual who needed to be put to good use. This way, Director Kim's reputation would be preserved, and So Min could also protect him from Seok-gu. It sounded very reasonable, so Director Kim immediately agreed to the offer. That night, Jong-hun and the police arrived at Wariport, intending to arrest the group Director Kim had brought to China. But strangely, they didn't see anyone. They only heard Sung-tae's groans nearby. Running over, Jong-hun saw Sung-tae tied up in a corner. He sighed, not expecting So Min to go to such lengths. At the same time, So Min was sitting in the car preparing to go to China. She was annoyed to hear the employees discussing how to spend their salaries. Suddenly, Director Kim offered everyone water. He demanded that each person drink the entire glass. So Min found it a little strange, but she still followed suit. And in just a moment, she fell asleep along with the staff in the car. In her dream, So Min recalled the scene from when her mother was still alive. She had brought home her acceptance letter to show her mother. Upon seeing the letter, her mother was overjoyed and praised her daughter incessantly. So Min and her mother then sat and chatted happily together. But this feeling of happiness quickly faded. So Min woke up and found herself in an old, dilapidated place. Before she could understand what was happening, she was called outside. The manager gave them exactly 10 seconds to pick up their bags. As soon as So Min heard the command, she rushed to grab her bag and returned to her seat. Someone failed to pick up their bag within the allotted time and was slapped hard in the face by the manager as a warning. Next, he ordered his two subordinates to drag the man away for processing. He instructed the others to remove their passports and electronic devices from their bags. After the welcoming ceremony was complete, So Min's group was led to the office. The manager explained the work procedures. The team they had just passed was responsible for making the first phone call. Here they only had one task. Once the first team secured a client, they would use that client's information to trick others into transferring money. Depending on the situation, they might also make the first phone call. When the manager asked if anyone had any questions, a young man raised his hand and asked about the basic salary. The manager said it depended on the commission, but the basic salary started at 5 million won. Shortly after, one young man was dragged out and beaten by the manager. The reason was that he hadn't met the required performance standards. Finally, he was dragged away by his subordinates to be dealt with. The others in the team didn't want to be the next victims, so they quickly called to trick customers into transferring money. Only So Min was still looking at the customer list. Before her was the list of theater troupe members, with Haidam's name marked. Although a little confused, So Min still picked up the phone and called Haidam. She began acting out the script. The Korean Artists Welfare Center is offering emergency living assistance to artists. To register, customers must prepare their artistic activity certificate and loan application documents, along with a copy of their national ID card. Initially, Haidam didn't suspect expect anything, but when she heard the part about clicking on a link, she recognized So-min's familiar voice. Haidam angrily asked So-min where she was and why she had gotten involved with these scammers. Because the manager was watching, So-min quickly stood up and cursed at Haidam. So-min demanded that Haidam send the money immediately and then hung up. This dispelled the manager's suspicions. Haidam then complied with So-min's request, sending her a copy of her national ID card. With just that copy, So-min successfully secured a 36 million won loan. The manager was surprised, as he hadn't expected a copy to work. The others in the team also came to observe So-min. So-min calmly explained that online banks or any financial institutions in Korea don't have a proper system for verifying original ID cards. The manager praised So-min's intelligence, using her as an example for the staff to follow. In just one day, So-min earned 36 million won. Everyone applauded. Unexpectedly, the manager approached and said someone wanted to see So-min. So-min followed him into a warehouse, but as soon as she entered, she was injected with a sedative. Afterward, she was taken by his subordinates to Sok-gu's base. Upon seeing him, So-min pretended to be unsteady on her feet, intending to grab his tie. She cursed him as a bastard and then stabbed him in the neck with scissors. Earlier, Sok-gu had met with Chairman Sung. Sok-gu wanted to discuss business matters and the quantity of goods being prepared for import. Chairman Sung generously rewarded Sok-gu with a suitcase full of money. Sok-gu quickly stood up and bowed in gratitude. Then, Chairman Sung inquired about the business situation in Singapore. Sok-gu replied that the contract would be signed soon. Chairman Sung smiled with satisfaction. Then he arrogantly said that it was all thanks to his power. Sok-gu's parents had been subordinates of Chairman Sung their whole lives, so even if Sok-gu had a little success, it wouldn't change his position. From the beginning, the worlds they were born and raised in were different. After hearing this, Sok-gu could only nod in agreement. However, after leaving, Sok-gu cursed Chairman Sung. Sok-gu swore that he would make the old chairman kneel and beg him one day. After saying this, Sok-gu quickly left with his subordinates. Back in reality, the scene of So-min stabbing Sok-gu in the neck with scissors was just an imagination in her head. At this moment, she could only step back to regain her composure. Sok-gu curiously asked if they had met before, because he found So-min's face very familiar. So-min replied that it would be strange if they hadn't met in this industry. Sok-gu found this reasonable, because if So-min had ever worked for Kai-soon, it was highly likely they had crossed paths before. He then invited So-min inside for a chat. Upon entering, So-min witnessed the staff using her mother's voice to scam people. Painful memories flooded back into her mind. So-min didn't realize she was standing still. Only when her subordinate urged her did she move. As soon as she sat down, Sok-gu erased So-min's profile. Then he pulled out a dagger and held it to her neck. He said that if her profile was unreliable, then her words were even less trustworthy. If she wanted him to believe her, she had to prove she wasn't a spy. So-min snatched the dagger from Sok-gu's hand, then unexpectedly turned and slashed the trouser leg of the long-haired subordinate standing nearby. His leg revealed a tattoo of the Hongsan gang. So-min then turned to Sok-gu and told him that this man was a spy. Sok-gu immediately ordered his subordinates to check, and it was indeed a Hongsan gang tattoo. It turned out that before So-min came to China, Do-jin had introduced her to the gangs, and she had seen the Hongsan gang tattoo when the long-haired subordinate sat down. Meanwhile, Jong-hun was recalling his father's words. Suddenly, the team leader came over and said there was a lot of work to do, yet Jong-hun still had time to sit there thinking nonsense. The investigation into Song-tae would soon be completed, after which he would be transferred to the prosecutor's office. Jong-hun then asked the team leader if Song-tae had confessed anything about the Il-sung gang. The team leader said that the man knew nothing. In Korea, he only knew Director Kim, but currently Director Kim's whereabouts were unknown, so the superiors decided to arrest the subordinates first. But this was pointless because they wouldn't be punished appropriately anyway. Hearing this, Jong-hun remembered what So-min had said. He smiled, stood up, and hugged the team leader tightly. He said it was true, he had almost become a good son to his father, so he thanked the team leader. After saying goodbye, Jong-hun turned and left. Then Jong-hun went into the evidence storage room and searched around for the box of documents he needed. Just as Jong-hun found it, someone entered the door code, so Jong-hun had to sit quietly in a corner to avoid being discovered. The other person entered the room to find the box of documents. After finding it, he quickly took the box and left. Only after he left did Jong-hun take down the box of documents about the campaigns to dismantle the phone scam ring. Jong-hun also took all the junk phones inside the cardboard box at the same time. So-min was invited into his private office for a talk. Not only that, she witnessed a subordinate feeding raw meat to Sok-gu's pet dog. Just by looking at it, So-min understood that it wasn't ordinary meat. It was likely the meat of the spy from earlier. Seok-gu said that if he kept her, he needed to be sure she truly wanted to work for him. He also saw So-min as someone useful in many ways. After saying this, he showed So-min a video of a content creator exposing a new scamming tactic used by fraudsters. After So-min finished watching, Seok-gu thanked her. Because So-min had found a method using copies of victims' IDs to obtain loans, other call centers would now follow suit. But sooner or later, this new method would be discovered. So he wanted So-min to come up with another new way, aiming to scam even more money from one person. So-min simply nodded and said she would do her best. Then she went to her work area. She proposed a new scam scenario for everyone to hear. She said that information was more important than technology. The database they regularly used was outdated, so now they had to change their perspective, focus on each victim's personal preferences, from the smallest details like food, fashion, music, and other things. Seok-gu was listening attentively when his subordinate approached. This man announced that Director Kim had been out of contact for over a week since the illegal casino was raided, and what was noteworthy was that So-min had gotten in through Director Kim. Not only that, on the day she entered the call center, the delivery person in Korea was also arrested. Coincidentally, Director Kim had also disappeared and was publicly wanted. Seok-gu sensed something was wrong, so he ordered his subordinate to thoroughly investigate So-min's background. While So-min was speaking, Seok-gu interrupted. He said that the team leader had reported that So-min was very good at finding the target's weaknesses, so he only asked her one question. What was his weakness? So-min then asked to borrow a broken tablet and phone. After entering the hacking commands, she borrowed Seok-gu's phone. Then she dialed a number, causing both the phone and the tablet to receive calls from the same number. At this point, she explained that this method allowed the devices to log in with the same account, one in China and the other in Korea. Even if they called from China, the number would still show as a Korean number. Now, signal switching devices are easily traced by the police, so it has become an outdated method. This method was already popular in Thailand. If they couldn't be ahead of others, they shouldn't fall behind. Seok-gu said nothing more. He simply told his staff to take a break, and then stood up and left. So-min walked over to the employee with the paper. She asked him to prepare an obituary. The employee looked bewildered, as the paper was a list of luxury apartment complexes. Then So-min went outside to light a cigarette for Seok-gu, but he dodged her. He said her skills were certainly not something new. He wanted to know what her scheme was, and what she wanted from him. So-min didn't hesitate to ask for a position there. Seok-gu immediately stood up and praised So-min's spirit. He asked her to prove her abilities with profit margins first, then others would seek her out. So-min laughed and replied that proving herself with achievements was too ironic. After saying that, she turned and left with a confident expression. Seok-gu watched, smiling with amusement. Just as the male staff member finished writing the obituary and sending messages to the residents of the upscale residential area, the disposable phones that Jong-hoon had brought back all rang simultaneously. While Do-jin was overjoyed to know that So-min had successfully made it to China, Jong-hoon took a phone and clicked on the link to the obituary that had been sent. That's when the phone became infected with a virus. The staff members all gained access to the victim's phone. They were completely unaware that it was a disposable phone that Jong-hoon had brought back. One female staff member managed to access the phone, but it only contained photos of the female idol, so she didn't know what script to use to scam them. So-min then went over to guide her on a new script. First, they would create a fake voice of the female idol, then send a message informing the victim that they hadn't been selected to attend the idol's fan meeting. After the victim read the message, they would call. Do-jin and Jong-hoon waited for a while before a call came in. This time, Jong-hoon was posing as a successful businessman. The scammer claimed to be an event manager. She announced that Jong-hoon hadn't been selected for the fan meeting because the competition was very high. However, they had decided to hold a surprise event, and those fans who weren't selected would have the chance to chat with their idol for about a minute. Of course, Jong-hoon was the lucky one chosen. As soon as he heard this, Jong-hoon stood up and shouted excitedly. Even Do-jin was shocked by Jong-hoon's acting skills. As soon as the event manager finished her work, she transferred the call to another staff member to continue talking to Jong-hoon. Seok-gu was also sitting in the observation room. While they were talking, So-min signaled that time was up, so the call was transferred back to the event manager. The female staff member said goodbye and hung up. After Jong-hoon hung up, Do-jin praised his acting. Jong-hoon, annoyed, told Do-jin to focus. Do-jin didn't dare tease him anymore. Soon after the scammers called again. This time, the person on the other end claimed to be the idol's manager. He warned Jong-hun not to reveal this to anyone because the idol wanted to contact him privately. Jong-hun pretended to be surprised and asked to meet his idol, but the manager said she wasn't in the mood to talk. He then pretended to ask a nearby female staff member if she wanted to meet the fan. She used the idol's voice to say she didn't want to meet. The manager then lied, saying the fifth album had been cancelled because they had borrowed too much money during production and had encountered some unnecessary problems. The female staff member actively cooperated by imitating the idol's voice to gain the victim's trust. Seeing Jong-hun becoming flustered, the manager handed the phone to the female employee. Her task was to impersonate a female idol to trick Jong-hun into transferring money. Jong-hun lied, saying he ran a small company and had recently received an investment, so he had some money to spend. Of course, Jong-hun wasn't easily swayed. He asked the female idol to repeat what she had said to the audience during her last performance. After hearing this, the scammers immediately searched online for information. Sok-gu could only shake his head in frustration. He turned to his subordinates and asked if they had any information about So-min's identity. The subordinate reported that he couldn't find any information about So-min. Just as Sok-gu was about to give the next order, So-min started vandalizing the work area. Then So-min snatched a staff member's headset to talk to Jong-hun. The subordinate tried to confront So-min, but Sok-gu stopped him. So-min then began playing the role of a creditor, demanding money from the idol, prompting Jong-hun to warn her that he would call the police. As soon as she finished speaking, So-min raised her voice defiantly. She signaled the staff to vandalize the property to put pressure on Jong-hun. Jong-hun asked them to stop and affirmed that he would pay the debt on behalf of his idol. Hearing this, So-min demanded 500 million won. Waiting for Jong-hun's agreement, she told him to put the money in locker number 22 at exit 9 of Seoul Station at 7 p.m. sharp. She also reminded Jong-hun not to call the police. After saying this, So-min quickly ended the call. The scammers were all impressed by So-min's quick thinking and ability to handle the situation. Sok-gu chuckled with amusement. That evening, Jong-hun placed the suitcase of money in the locker as agreed. It was the same amount So-min had brought earlier, saying it was the price for her mother's life. After Jong-hun left, a scammer went to the locker to retrieve the money. He then called Sok-gu to inform him. Unexpectedly, Jong-hun was nearby, observing and smiling with satisfaction. The 100 million won was quickly transferred to the account. The scammers were overjoyed to see the money. Sok-gu asked about their highest daily earnings and the highest earnings a person had ever made. The scammers replied that their highest daily earnings were 1 billion won, while a person's highest earnings were only 100 million won. This meant that the 100 million won earned by So-min had broken all records. Sok-gu immediately allowed his staff to celebrate. So-min was furious to see these swindlers celebrating at the expense of others suffering. But for now, she could do nothing but endure it. At this moment, Sok-gu poured So-min a drink. He casually asked if she had learned anything from Kai-soon. If so, he hoped she could teach him how to charm others. So-min just sneered and asked if he only wanted to learn how to charm others. Actually, she could help him become a legitimate businessman. Hearing this, Sok-gu laughed loudly because So-min's words were so impossible. But So-min still seriously said that she could teach him the methods of charming others that she had learned from Kai-soon. In return, she wanted a higher profit margin. Sok-gu laughed again, dropping his glass of wine because he was already drunk. He picked up the bottle and invited So-min to drink freely. So-min had no choice but to take the bottle and drink. Sok-gu chuckled gleefully and stood up to go to his private office. So-min didn't want to miss this opportunity, so she quickly followed him. After So-min took Sok-gu back to his office, Sok-gu turned on deep voice on his laptop. He gleefully used So-min's mother's voice right in front of her. Despite her anger, So-min managed to restrain herself. She pretended to ask whose voice it was. Sok-gu gleefully recounted that she was an unlucky woman. He had ordered his subordinates to put her in a barrel and burn her alive. Then he took out a box containing severed fingers. He even took one out to give to So-min as a souvenir. When he saw her looking uncomfortable, he grabbed her neck and warned her. But after only a few minutes, he let go. He collapsed onto the sofa completely drunk. At this moment, So-min also conceived the idea of assassinating this scoundrel, so she approached to take the dagger from his belt. Just then, Sok-gu's phone rang. It turned out to be Chairman Sung calling, so So-min had to wake the leader up to answer the phone. Sok-gu reluctantly sat up to answer the call. Afterwards, Sok-gu left with his subordinate. Taking advantage of the opportunity, So-min installed hacking software on Sok-gu's laptop. Sok-gu was at the safe to get the ledgers to check for Chairman Sung, but he suddenly realized he had forgotten the key and had to return into the office. So-min was still waiting for the software to finish installing. When Sok-gu opened the door and entered, So-min was pretending to be fast asleep on the sofa. The subordinate tried to wake So-min up, but Sok-gu stopped him. Sok-gu wanted to let So-min sleep for a while. After the software was successfully installed, Do-jin also managed to hack into the security cameras inside Sok-gu's base. Because this security camera also had a recording function, Jong-hun could easily hear what Sok-gu was saying to Chairman Sung on the phone. Sok-gu didn't understand why he had to hand over the casino business records. He understood that the current situation wasn't very good, which was why he took the job in Singapore. The chairman had also said he would help with the casino business. The contract was now in its final stages. They just needed to raise more capital to sign the contract. After hearing this, Chairman Sung replied that the Singapore brokerage firm would sign the contract with his side, so Sok-gu just needed to hand over the records and withdraw. He would also find Sok-gu another business project. Sok-gu began to recount all his contributions, but Chairman Sung didn't seem interested. Chairman Sung also said that Sok-gu didn't understand things, as well as Kai-soon. After saying that, Chairman Sung hung up the phone. Sok-gu meanwhile became furious. He ordered his subordinates to bring the employee with the worst performance to him. The unfortunate employee was dragged to the execution room. Sok-gu vented his anger by cursing and slapping the employee in the face. But that wasn't enough. He then wrapped an iron chain around the employee's hand and punched him in the face. After venting his anger, he ordered his subordinates to drag the employee away to dispose of him. Jong-hun thought this was a good time to attack. The bait would be an extremely attractive business deal for Sok-gu. The next day, a gang member was burning the victim's belongings. Sok-gu's close subordinate went over and snatched the wallet from the man's hand to examine it. At this time, So-min was outside chatting with Sok-gu. The gang leader complained about how Chairman Sung treated him, so So-min seized the opportunity to ask if he knew about the game called Jenga. No matter how high a player's position, if the foundation is weak, it will eventually collapse. A gang is no different. A leader without protection will sooner or later fall. While they were talking, a subordinate came and showed Sok-gu a wallet. After opening it, Sok-gu looked at So-min with a skeptical gaze. He said he had just learned a very interesting truth and asked So-min to guess what it was. So-min remained silent. Sok-gu then stood up and held up Mrs. Kim's wallet, along with the ticket to the performance that So-min was attending. So-min looked at the gang leader without any fear. She said she didn't know the owner of the wallet. She was just an actress and couldn't remember everyone who came to the show. Sok-gu just laughed. He went to get the pruning shears and returned to So-min's side. Unexpectedly, the person Sok-gu attacked was one of his subordinates. Sok-gu told the subordinate that if he wanted to interrupt the conversation, he needed to bring more convincing evidence. After saying this, Sok-gu punched the subordinate hard in the face as a warning, and the subordinate could only bow his head and apologize repeatedly. Then Sok-gu and So-min went into the office to continue their discussion. So-min asked Sok-gu if he knew who Mason was. Sok-gu said he knew Mason because Mason was famous for being a casino tycoon in Macau. So-min understood that Mason was currently in Lakara, and the electronic trading brokerage had been declining for a long time. This was because Lakara had spent a large sum of money to lure Mason in months ago. She observed that this could be an opportunity. After saying this, she pointed a pin to Singapore on the map. Sok-gu also recalled what he had said to Chairman Sung the previous day. So-min continued to ask which Korean company owned a casino in Singapore. Upon hearing this, Sok-gu immediately replied that it was Genie Development. Sok-gu understood So-min's intention was to bring Mason to Genie, but they would find it difficult to recruit someone of his stature. So-min then mentioned Mason's trusted subordinate, whom she knew. After saying this, she took out her phone and showed Sok-gu a picture, saying it was Eric. Immediately afterward, Sok-gu called Jong-hun. The police officer then impersonated Eric. As soon as he answered, he enthusiastically chatted with So-min. After So-min mentioned Sok-gu's name, Jong-hun sarcastically remarked that he was the one who only knew how to flatter Chairman Sung, but had been abandoned by him. Sok-gu then introduced himself. Jong-hun quickly apologized for his inappropriate words. Since both of them were subordinates of Chairman Sung, they were essentially in the same predicament. Next, Jong-hun began asking Sok-gu if he knew about the Marina Bay Sands Casino in Singapore, as the entire management there would be replaced this time. Sok-gu, upon hearing this, signaled his subordinates to investigate. Jong-hun continued his act, lamenting that Mason hadn't yielded his position to him, but had instead given it to Mason's wife. He argued that no matter how loyal they were, they would eventually be eliminated. That was the fate of subordinates, so they had to at least bite their boss to get revenge. After listening for a while, Sok-gu realized Eric wanted to rebel. Since they got along well, he requested a face-to-face meeting with Eric. Jong-hun readily agreed. Jong-hun tried to persuade Seok-gu to return to Korea, but Seok-gu was very cautious. He said he was busy making money in China and couldn't possibly be absent. He promised to treat Eric well if he came. Jong-hun pondered for a moment, then happily agreed, but he didn't forget to remind Seok-gu to pay for the plane ticket. Seok-gu just laughed with amusement and said he would prepare everything. Jong-hun was racking his brains because he still couldn't persuade Seok-gu to return to Korea. Meanwhile, the current situation was very urgent. No matter what, he still had to go to China. Meanwhile, Chairman Sung called Seok-gu, but the person who answered the phone was his subordinate, Yu-sung. Yu-sung lied, saying Seok-gu was busy in a meeting developing a new script and business idea. Chairman Sung was annoyed that he still hadn't received the ledgers. He believed Yu-sung was lying to him, so he decided to confiscate the secret funds. Chairman Sung only instructed Yu-sung to relay his words before hanging up. Only after the chairman finished speaking did Director Park dare to speak. It seems the subordinates are causing a lot of trouble for the chairman. Director Park himself only has one son, yet his son only knows how to cause trouble, so he doesn't dare to judge him. Chairman Sung just smiled and replied that one day children will understand their parents' feelings. Director Park also smiled and affirmed that his son wouldn't cause any more trouble anyway. But he didn't know that Jong-hun had flown to China to meet Seok-gu. Seok-gu, being suspicious, kept asking about Eric's identity. Seok-gu had met Mason many times before, but he had never seen Eric with him. Jong-hun explained that he was there to discuss business, so he was surprised that Seok-gu was so curious about him. Seok-gu wanted to know why a well-known figure in the gambling world, like Mason, could be manipulated by an Asian like Eric. He found it interesting and intriguing. Jong-hun just laughed and said that besides his handsome face, he had many other interesting qualities. So Min also joined the conversation, commenting that the two were very compatible. Even though it was their first meeting, they were already chatting so comfortably. Hearing this, Seok-gu chuckled with amusement, saying, "You have to be compatible to do business." Jong-hun replied that even if they weren't compatible, they had to force themselves to be. Hearing this, the leader just smiled and looked at Jong-hun with a skeptical gaze. After returning to the base, Seok-gu received another call from Chairman Sung. He gestured for the other two to go inside first. Not wanting to answer, Seok-gu handed the phone to Yu-sung. He asked his subordinate if they had investigated Eric's background. Yu-sung said that according to the triads, Eric did work for Mason, and it seemed he had been in a gang founded by Filipinos in Los Angeles. After hearing this, Seok-gu felt more at ease. Then everyone went back into the office to discuss business. Jong-hun was astonished by the array of security camera screens in the room. He could see everything from where he was sitting. So Min took the opportunity to ask to go outside to get water. As soon as she went outside, Yu-sung approached and asked where she was going. He offered to go in So-min's place and told her to return to work in the office. But So-min said she also needed to go to the restroom, so Yu-sung let her go. That was also when Do-jin hacked into the system and turned off all the security cameras. Seeing the screens turned off, Seok-gu ordered Yu-sung to fix them. Yu-sung didn't look at So-min anymore, but took out his phone to call the repair team. Seok-gu then began questioning Jong-hun about how he knew Mason. Jong-hun lied, saying he knew some Filipino friends living in Los Angeles. One day Mason came to him to discuss a business partnership. After listening, Seok-gu acknowledged Mason's keen judgment, then directly asked Jong-hun if he could connect him with Mason. Jong-hun replied that Seok-gu hadn't answered his question yet. Seok-gu just laughed and asked if Jong-hun knew about Genie Tourism Development Company. They had recently built the largest integrated resort in Singapore and were planning to bring Mason there. Eric could take all the money from that deal, while Seok-gu only wanted to reclaim his business rights. Jong-hun suggested that cooperation wouldn't be difficult, but investing in his project would be more profitable. Seok-gu was bewildered. Jong-hun then opened his briefcase and took out documents about an investment project. Seok-gu realized the other party wanted him to invest in online casino games. Since he wasn't interested, Seok-gu suggested ending the conversation there. Jong-hun simply took out his phone and showed it to Seok-gu. He told Seok-gu to just look at it first and think about it further. Seok-gu zoomed in on the picture on the phone. He recognized it as Congressman Seo from the article proposing a bill for self-regulation of video games. At the same time, Yu-sung was supervising the security camera repair staff. He was completely unaware that So-min had broken into the computer room. Because the door was locked, she used specialized tools to open it. She quickly grabbed the laptop on the table and put on her headphones. Doo-jin, seeing the signal, also quickly stopped eating noodles at work. After connecting, So-min successfully imitated Congressman Seo's voice. Meanwhile, Seok-gu and Jong-hun were still negotiating. Jong-hun was trying to persuade the leader to invest in his project, because if he only passed Mason through Genie, Seok-gu wasn't sure he would win the business rights. But going through the person holding the business rights would be different. Jong-hun could also easily connect Seok-gu with Congressman Seo. Given his suspicious nature, Seok-gu wouldn't easily believe the document. He only wanted to know if Jong-hun's acquaintance with Congressman Seo was true. Jong-hun said that proving it wouldn't be difficult, because it was already an obvious truth. Just as he finished speaking, his phone rang with a call from Congressman Seo, so Jong-hun happily put it on speakerphone so Seok-gu could hear. Seok-gu was surprised to hear Congressman Seo's voice. He had no idea So-min was impersonating the congressman. She had even lied, saying the schedule for the hearing to announce the new law had been arranged. She claimed Korean citizens were simple people and didn't need to worry. So-min continued playing her role without realizing the repair team had finished their work. Doo-jin tried to hack into the system again to turn off the security cameras, but strangely he couldn't. It turned out the system had anti-hacker software installed. Jong-hun also saw the security camera screen turn on. He quickly said goodbye to the fake congressman and hung up. At that moment, a subordinate came to inform Seok-gu that Chairman Sung was demanding the handover of all the fictitious accounts containing the secret funds. This made Seok-gu even more anxious. He snatched Jong-hun's phone to speak with Congressman Seo. He decided to use 5 billion won from his secret fund to invest, so So-min lied, saying she would negotiate with Chairman On the following afternoon. After the agreement was reached, So-min quickly hung up. That's when the subordinate entered and found her sitting with her laptop. He approached and asked So-min what she was doing there. So-min was flustered and didn't know how to answer. Seeing this, the subordinate lunged forward and snatched the laptop to examine it. Meanwhile, Jong-hun, fearing Seok-gu would turn to look at the security camera screen, tried to distract him with conversation. But at that moment, there was a commotion and shouting outside. The henchman from earlier had dragged So-min to Yoo-sung's place. Yoo-sung immediately opened his laptop to check. After checking, he pulled So-min into Seok-gu's office. He reported the situation and showed the laptop to Seok-gu. After looking at it, Seok-gu turned to Jong-hun and asked where Congressman Seo was and whether the meeting with Chairman An tomorrow noon would proceed. Jong-hun confirmed that the two would meet to discuss the matter, and that Congressman Seo was probably busy with the general election schedule. Seok-gu sneered and asked why someone so busy would be at the prosecutor's office. Jong-hun looked confused. Seok-gu then showed Jong-hun the newspaper article about Congressman Seo's arrest for tax evasion. He further asked why Congressman Seo would take the time to talk to him about such a major issue. After saying that, he stood up and slapped So-min across the face, suspecting she was sent by Chairman Sung to cause trouble. Just as he raised his hand to hit her again, Jong-hun stopped him. He then went berserk, demanding that Jong-hun bring proof and bring Congressman Seo before him. Jong-hun had no choice but to call Congressman Seo, but no one answered. So he left a voicemail and arranged to meet Congressman Seo at Sangamsa Temple at 8 p.m. Seok-gu gave Jong-hun 5 hours to prepare. After saying that, Seok-gu turned and ordered his subordinates to take So-min and Jong-hun onto a boat to return to Korea. That night, Seok-gu returned to Korea and waited for Congressman Seo at Sangamsa Temple. But more than an hour had passed, and they still hadn't seen Congressman Seo. Suddenly, Congressman Seo walked in. He is called Jong-hun by the name Eric. It turned out that Jong-hun had planned everything before going to China. While studying at the police academy, Jong-hun was a reporter for the school newspaper. He also wrote an article about Congressman Seo being swindled out of 1 billion won by a scammer. This led to Jong-hun's acquaintance with Congressman Seo, and he approached him to participate in the plan. The first step was to publish a fake article about Congressman Seo's house being searched, aiming to pressure and lure the ringleader Seok-gu back to the country. Congressman Seo, having also been swindled out of 1 billion won by the scammer, wouldn't miss this opportunity for revenge. After arriving at Sangamsa Temple as planned, Congressman Seo asked Seok-gu to explain what had happened. However, Seok-gu didn't dare say a word because he had threatened and assaulted Congressman Seo's men. So Min then explained that there had been a misunderstanding, as she and Jong-hun had planned to seize the investment profits that were supposed to be shared with Congressman Seo. So after learning about the situation, Seok-gu told the two of them to apologize to Congressman Seo. Seok-gu was surprised that So-min had lied to protect him. Meanwhile, Congressman Seo patted Jong-hun on the shoulder. He acted exactly according to the pre-written script. So-min also went to tell Congressman Seo that Seok-gu had connections with the prosecution. Seok-gu also said that he would speak to them to stop the house search. Hearing this, Congressman Seo decided to repay Seok-gu. He called Chairman An and asked him to sign the contract with Seok-gu. After hearing this, Seok-gu was overjoyed. He bowed his head to thank Congressman Seo, completely unaware that he had fallen into a trap. A short while later, Seok-gu drove to meet Chairman An to discuss signing the contract. Before leaving, he was told that Genie Company would send a detailed email about the contract. While stopped at a red light, Seok-gu opened his phone and read the email. But when Seok-gu clicked on the meeting location link, strangely his phone couldn't load the website. At that moment, the traffic light turned green, so Seok-gu put his phone aside and continued driving. So-min and Jong-hun were being escorted home by Seok-gu's subordinates. While in the car, So-min secretly texted Do-jin. Thanks to Seok-gu clicking on the link in the email, Do-jin was able to easily access his phone. He impersonated Seok-gu and told the subordinate to take So-min and Jong-hun back to Sangamsa Temple. The subordinate, not wanting to be scolded further, turned the car around. While Seok-gu was driving, Congressman Seo called. He asked where Seok-gu was and if everything was all right. Seok-gu was confused, not understanding Congressman Seo's meaning. Suddenly, a truck crashed into his car. After being taken back to Sangamsa Temple, So-min called to thank Do-jin. Meanwhile, Seok-gu was struggling to get out of the car after the accident. Just then the phone rang again, so he pressed the answer button. As soon as he heard So-min's voice on the other end, Seok-gu cursed. He insisted that So-min absolutely did not call for emergency services. So-min said that she had heard Seok-gu was wanted by the police. She said that if she reported it to the police, it would cause serious trouble. She suggested she inform Chairman Sung, but she didn't know if Chairman Sung knew about the 5 billion won he had lost. She told Seok-gu not to worry because the 5 billion won was already in her possession. Seok-gu was furious but could only curse. He couldn't do anything, so Min cursed him back before hanging up. After cursing for a while, Seok-gu fainted. He lay there in a pathetic state. A short while later, an ambulance arrived to take Seok-gu to the hospital. On the way, they were blocked by a car. Seok-gu's subordinates got out of the car and quickly dealt with the two medical staff. Then, they put their leader into the car and left the scene. A few days later, Jong-hun woke up. He immediately asked Do-jin where So-min had gone. After learning that So-min was outside, Jong-hun quickly got up and left. He went to the park where So-min was sitting. There he advised her to be more careful from now on. Although Seok-gu had been dealt with, there were still potential dangers. So-min had nothing left to lose, so she wasn't afraid. She said that Jong-hun still had both parents, so his life was much better than others. Mentioning his family made Jong-hun sad. His family consisted of a father willing to sacrifice his son for his own advancement, and a mother driven mad by being called a concubine. He didn't consider it a normal family. Therefore, Jong-hun only hoped that So-min would get back on her feet and soon find her own life again. So-min just nodded, saying she understood. Then she stood up and said goodbye to Jong-hun. Before leaving, she turned back to thank him, but she refused to say why. Afterwards, So-min went to her parents' restaurant. She unlocked the door and went inside, taking in the surroundings. As soon as she sat down at the table, she recalled beautiful memories from the past. So-min's father always looked at his wife with loving eyes, while her mother often spoke harshly. Even so, she was truly a very affectionate and kind mother. She always charged less for customers in need. That was also why So-min's father loved his wife so much. The more So-min reminisced, the sadder she became, missing her parents. So she quickly left the restaurant and locked the door. She also noticed the bills outside the door. Strangely, all the bills showed signs of being torn. She began to suspect who had done this. Meanwhile, Jong-hun went to the office to see his father. While waiting for his father to finish his meeting, he walked around, looking at the surroundings. He saw a family photo of his father and a commendation from the police chief. Chief Park then appeared. He sarcastically remarked that his son seemed willing to slit his own throat for So-min. Jong-hun retorted sarcastically, saying he guessed his father would also be willing to offer his throat to the woman in the photo, because he was the kind of person who would abandon his wife and children to protect his own reputation. Hearing this, Chief Park recalled a past event, how he had abandoned his family to advance in politics. Even his father told Jong-hun that he couldn't resent him now, but when he grew up and saw the wider world, he would soon understand him. After saying this, Chief Park quickly left, ignoring his wife's desperate pleas. Back in reality, Jong-hun said that his father still seemed dissatisfied with the position he had achieved by abandoning his family. Jong-hun also said that he would definitely send Seok-gu to prison. He hoped his father would stop so that he could at least still have some respect for him. Just as Jong-hun turned to leave, Chief Park spoke up. Chief Park told his son not to think that the world he saw was everything. anything. If he had done anything wrong, it was only because he hadn't brought Jong-hun out into the wider world sooner. Jong-hun just smiled helplessly and replied that if it was a world he could only see when his father dragged him out, he'd rather live as a blind man. After saying that, Jong-hun left the office, not wanting to talk anymore. He then returned to his desk to compile the statements of the fraud victims. Dong-chan, seeing this, was a little worried, knowing Jong-hun was up to something again. Jong-hun simply advised Dong-chan not to interfere in his affairs. Suddenly, the team leader called Jong-hun outside to talk about the accident near Shan Bridge yesterday. He said that it seemed the missing man in the accident was the gang leader Sok-gu. Jong-hun was surprised to hear this, as he thought Sok-gu was dead. The team leader also said that the rescue workers had been attacked by a gang, the surrounding security cameras had been destroyed, and the dashcam's memory card had been stolen. This indicated they had planned it beforehand. Then the team leader showed Jong-hun a file. He said that Director Park had issued an arrest warrant for Sok-gu, even though Director Park had previously covered for Sok-gu. At the same time, Director Park went to see Chairman Sung for a conversation. Because Chairman Sung had asked him to, Director Park issued the arrest warrant for Sok-gu. Director Park asked if Chairman Sung could resolve the funding issue. Chairman Sung didn't answer directly. He only asked Director Park which political party he intended to join. Director Park replied that he was considering it. He wanted to act in a way that would benefit Chairman Sung as much as possible. After hearing this, Chairman Sung said that he would also continue to consider his own interests, as everyone would think that way. Moreover, his subordinates had interfered with his money. The chairman felt that his subordinates had also been framed by someone. Even if they found Sok-gu, his money would be gone. So he wanted to catch the real thief. Only then would he resolve the funding issue. Chief Park could only nod in agreement. Meanwhile, So-min stopped by the flower shop her mother used to frequent to buy funeral flowers. After looking around for a while, So-min decided on camellias. While the saleswoman was wrapping the flowers, she curiously asked if So-min and the man she had seen earlier knew each other. He had bought camellias before So-min arrived. Few people buy camellias for funerals, so the saleswoman was curious about whether the two knew each other. So-min was bewildered, not knowing who the man was. Afterward, she went to the funeral home to pay her respects to her parents. Upon arrival, she saw a bouquet of camellias already arranged. She took the bouquet down and went to the security guard to ask to see the security camera footage. However, the guard firmly refused to let her see the camera footage due to privacy concerns. So Min decided to ask if he had seen anyone carrying camellias around. The security guard remembered a man bringing camellias to the funeral. Because the man was wearing glasses, he couldn't see his face clearly, but he still remembered that the man had a strange tattoo on his neck. So Min remembered that Sok-gu had a tattoo on his neck, so she took out the Il-sung gang's tattoo. She asked the security guard if it was the same tattoo. He nodded and said it was. After hearing this, So-min realized that Sok-gu might still be alive. That evening, Jong-hun, after finishing work, texted So-min. He knew that Sok-gu might still be alive, so he arranged to meet her to discuss a plan to deal with him. Just as he finished texting, his father's secretary arrived. She invited him into the car to talk. Although he didn't want to, Jong-hun had to get in. Chief Park got straight to the point. He asked if Jong-hun was responsible for Sok-gu's incident. Jong-hun stubbornly denied it, then angrily got out of the car, leaving his father helpless. Afterward, Jong-hun called So-min to let her know he was on his way to their meeting. So-min told Jong-hun about the strange events of that morning, from the torn receipt to the funeral flowers and the Il-sung gang tattoo on the neck of the strange man. She believed Sok-gu had left those marks. Jong-hun sighed and recounted everything. It turned out Sok-gu had been taken away by his subordinates while in the ambulance. It was possible he was still alive and was deliberately appearing near So-min to put pressure on her. Jong-hun heard So-min's worried voice. He quickly reassured her that he would be at the meeting point immediately and hung up. As soon as he hung up, Jong-hun rushed off and the person following him quickly caught up. Reaching a dead end, he was wondering where Jong-hun was hiding when Jong-hun suddenly attacked him from behind. The two men lunged at each other, fighting. After a while, Jong-hun gained the upper hand and knocked his pursuer unconscious. However, a gang of thugs arrived shortly afterward. Jong-hun fought them all, but after a while, he realized things weren't going well and decided to flee. The thugs quickly chased after him, splitting up to catch him. They didn't know Jong-hun was hiding inside a house. After escaping danger, Jong-hun came out. He called So-min on his phone, but before he could say anything, he was hit on the head with a stick. So-min waited anxiously, but Jong-hun didn't come. Suddenly she heard a noise and peeked out to see what was happening. It turned out Jong-hun was being taken away in a car by a gang. So-min immediately chased after the car, while Do-jin stood there bewildered, not understanding what was happening. After a while, So-min gave up. Do-jin leaned out of the taxi and asked her to get in. On the way, So-min suggested they call the police. But Do-jin disagreed, saying that doing so would expose their relationship with the gang and they would end up in jail. After saying this, Do-jin took out his phone and turned on the GPS tracking app. He told the driver to speed up to catch up with the gang's car. At this point, Jong-hun's phone was also turned off, so the GPS signal Do-jin had set up was useless. A short while later, Jong-hun was taken to an abandoned warehouse. There the gang began interrogating him about the secret funds. When Jong-hun refused to confess, the gang beat him up. This scene was also recorded on video. Meanwhile, So-min and Do-jin returned to their base and waited. At that moment, someone called. So-min answered the phone and put it on speakerphone. The person on the other end told her to return his money. Specifically, So-min had to put it in locker number 2 at Gidong Station tomorrow night. Otherwise, Jong-hun would suffer the same fate as So-min's parents. After saying that, he hung up, and at the same time, a video was sent to her. It showed Jong-hun being beaten. Watching this video, So-min was reminded of her painful past. She decided to return the money because she didn't want to see anyone else die. Meanwhile, Sung-tae was drinking in his office. Having lost everything, he decided to take sleeping pills to end his own life. But as soon as he put the pill in his mouth, he started vomiting it all out of fear of dying. Suddenly, there was the sound of someone opening the door outside. Sung-tae crawled on the floor and hid, thinking it was his creditors, but it turned out to be just So-min. So-min came to ask Sung-tae if he knew where Seok-gu was hiding, but Sung-tae said he didn't know anything. He claimed that Seok-gu was the reason his life was so miserable. Hearing this, So-min suggested they cooperate, but Sung-tae wasn't easily convinced. He still maintained a contemptuous attitude towards So-min. So So-min gave him the wanted poster for Seok-gu with a reward of 50 million won. So-min suggested they split the money equally after the operation was successful, but Sung-tae still thought it was too little, so So-min gradually increased the price. Only when they agreed to a 9-1 split did Sung-tae agree to cooperate. After that, he and the owner of Olymp Telecom waited in the shop until So-min arrived. The shop owner immediately recognized So-min as the daughter of a Chinese woman. So-min thought South Korea was a great place to live because criminals didn't go to jail and could live so comfortably. She then asked the shop owner if he had any personal information about his customers. He said all the documents had been confiscated by the police. So-min placed the suitcase containing the junk phones on the table. The shop owner began to make excuses, saying he was only following Sung-tae's orders. Furthermore, foreigners sold personal information at high prices, so he had to work hard to get a good deal. So-min didn't want to hear any more, so she demanded that the shop owner give her all the information about foreigners. So-min also asked where she could find the recruitment notice for the Il-seong gang. Hearing this, Sung-tae took out his phone and let So-min post the job advertisement. The next morning, So-min met with a young foreigner named Obombek. She asked him to call the Il-seong gang's debt collection agency. It turned out the gang was in trouble and needed people urgently, so Obombek was also asked to go to Gidong Station for a mission. So-min brought the black money to the station as arranged, and Obombek was tasked with collecting the money. After collecting it, he got into a taxi. Following the directions, he went to Songun Junction Station and handed the money to an employee waiting at exit number 3. That employee waited at a fish cake shop and then handed the money to the next employee to go to the final location. Because So-min had given her phone to Obombek and the other foreigners earlier, she could easily locate their positions. Only after the last person delivered the money to the gangsters did So-min instruct the driver to follow their car. Thanks to this, So-min learned that the place where they were holding Jong-hun was an abandoned warehouse. Waiting until no one was around, So-min secretly went inside. So-min searched for Jong-hun but couldn't find him. She only found a blood-stained towel on a nearby table. As soon as So-min stepped outside, she saw Jong-hun standing right in front of her. Not only that, Jong-hun showed no signs of injury. Suddenly, Jong-hun handcuffed So-min to a nearby machine. So-min was bewildered, not understanding what was happening. But when So-min saw the Il-seong gang's tattoo on Jong-hun's neck, she understood everything. It turned out that the man who left all the clues earlier was Jong-hun. He had orchestrated the whole thing and used So-min's trust to get back the secret stash of money. After getting the money, Jong-hun used a voice-changing device. Jong-hun called Seok-gu's subordinates to inform them of the situation. After the call, he turned and left with Yoo-sung. Only So-min remained in the warehouse, seething with anger. Jong-hun and Yoo-sung went to Chairman Sung's office. Upon entering, they witnessed Chairman Sung beating Seok-gu with a stick. Jong-hun returned the stolen money to Chairman Sung. As soon as Seok-gu saw Jong-hun, he started cursing. This resulted in Chairman Sung beating Seok-gu even even more. Chairman Sung even ordered Seok-gu to bark like a dog. Seok-gu had no choice but to obediently comply. Seeing this, Chairman Sung was satisfied and stopped beating him. At the same time, Seok-gu's subordinates arrived at the warehouse. Chairman Sung's subordinates immediately greeted them. The two groups then engaged in a fight. After Seok-gu's subordinates were dealt with, Chairman Sung's subordinates called Yu Sung to inform him of the situation. After hearing this, he immediately ordered So Min to be taken away so Chairman Sung could deal with her. Meanwhile, So Min was struggling to escape. At this moment, Do Jin arrived and using his phone's GPS app, quickly unlocked the handcuffs, allowing So Min to escape. Thanks to Jong-hoon reactivating his GPS in the warehouse, Do Jin was able to easily find her. So Min asked Do Jin if he knew that Jong-hoon was a member of the Il-sung gang, but Do Jin seemed surprised. Just then, Chairman Sung's henchmen stormed in. So Min tried to scare them by opening the gas valve, but nothing happened, so she decided to run away. She climbed to a high area, then kicked down all the stairs to prevent them from climbing. Do Jin managed to get outside, but then encountered another gang member. Just as Do Jin was about to be beaten, So Min hit the enemy on the head with a brick. Then So Min and Do Jin climbed into a car and escaped. Thanks to this, they successfully avoided pursuit. The next morning, Chairman Sung summoned Chief Park for a talk. He revealed that Chief Park's beloved son had been working for him for a year, and yesterday, Jong-hoon had successfully obtained the secret funds, officially becoming Chairman Sung's subordinate. Chief Park was surprised to hear this. Chairman Sung then asked Chief Park to prove himself. If he could prove himself, Chairman Sung would consider providing funding. Furthermore, the chairman requested that Chief Park deal with one of his subordinates. Chief Park had no choice but to comply. He went outside and called the police station, ordering them to stop pursuing Seok-gu. Just as he hung up, he saw Jong-hoon approaching, so he immediately asked his son if it was really necessary to go to such lengths. Jong-hoon replied that the person who had taken his mother away was his father. If his father couldn't take responsibility, then he shouldn't cause any more harm. He only wanted to wipe away a small stain on himself because he found it dirty. But to Jong-hoon, that stain meant everything. Chief Park could only warn his son that if he dared to go this far, he should be prepared to face his father. While they were talking, Chairman Sung opened the door and came out. Jong-hoon quickly left with the chairman. Meanwhile, Congressman Seo was listening to an old man begging for the land back. Tired of listening, the congressman asked his secretary to escort the old man outside. He didn't forget to tell the old man to make the same plea at the conference. At that moment, Chairman Sung and Jong-hoon arrived, so Congressman Seo invited them to sit down. He curiously asked Chairman Sung what he was doing there today. Chairman Sung mentioned that the Tourism Promotion Amendment Bill had been passed by the Standing Committee, to which Congressman Seo replied that he had done his best as a party member. Hearing this, Chairman Sung was very pleased that the land development issue had been resolved, and the key now was selecting a private contractor. Congressman Seo argued that this was not easy because, as a representative of the people, he should set aside personal interests and work for them. Chairman Sung chuckled with amusement. He mentioned Congressman Seo's son, who had renounced his American citizenship and enlisted in the military. The conversation became tense, so Jong-hoon understood and stood up to leave the office. After Jong-hoon left, Congressman Seo began to flatter Chairman Sung. Chairman Sung then brought up the crimes that Congressman Seo had committed in the past. He didn't forget to mention how much he had helped Congressman Seo cover up the matter. He also mentioned how much Chairman Sung had arranged for Congressman Seo's current position. Therefore, disregarding the people's interests and acting for personal gain was the right thing to do. After hearing this, Congressman Seo laughed and agreed with Chairman Sung. As Jong-hoon stepped outside, Seok-gu started a fight with him. He suspected Jong-hoon of having some ulterior motive for joining the gang. Jong-hoon, however, believed Seok-gu was still angry about being robbed of his position. Jong-hoon even warned Seok-gu to be less trusting, saying it wasn't right for someone who made money through fraud to be deceived. Seok-gu grabbed Jong-hoon by the collar and pinned him against the wall, warning him. But Jong-hoon showed no fear. He even grabbed Seok-gu's wrist and reminded him to be careful with his little finger. After saying that, Jong-hoon turned and walked away. Seok-gu stood there angry but couldn't do anything. A little later, Seok-gu and Jong-hoon drove Chairman Sung back to his office. On the way, Chairman Sung looked at the vast, unharvested plot of land. He said that this land wasn't just a simple resort, it was a miracle that would make him a world-class chairman. But the problem now was that they had nothing to attract investors. They still needed a figure who could represent the company's image. Jong-hoon immediately suggested creating a virtual representative. After returning to the office, Chairman Sung asked for more ideas from Jong-hoon. Jong-hoon believed that introducing influential political figures would make it easier to attract investors. This would increase the company's value and allow them to sell it. The amount of money received would be enormous. Even if the investors investors found out the truth later, they wouldn't be able to report it because ultimately, they all shared the same interests. Chairman Sung thought this idea was quite good, so he asked Jong-hun if he could finish it in 3 days. Jong-hun nodded and said he could. At this moment, Yu-sung entered, so Chairman Sung asked him if he had found So-min yet. Yu-sung said that despite searching everywhere, they still hadn't found any clues. Chairman Sung began to get angry with his incompetent subordinate. Seeing this, Jong-hun took responsibility for bringing So-min back. Hearing this, Chairman Sung agreed and asked Jong-hun to leave. After everyone had left, Sok-gu spoke up. Sok-gu said he was only worried about Chairman Sung and wanted to know why the chairman kept Jong-hun by his side. Chairman Sung hadn't known Jong-hun for very long, while Sok-gu had served him for 20 years. Chairman Sung asked if Sok-gu thought he trusted Jong-hun, but for Chairman Sung, trusting people was the most foolish thing to do. In the current situation, Chairman Sung only looked at results. So if Sok-gu had anything to say, it was best to show it through results. After hearing this, Sok-gu just smirked and nodded in agreement. The following days were very stressful for the team leader because his superiors had withdrawn the arrest warrant for Sok-gu, even though he had previously urged them to apprehend the criminal. Dong-chan was also very frustrated by this, as they had almost gathered all the evidence. Suddenly, there was a call to the police station. Dong-chan picked up the phone and received a complaint from a citizen. After hanging up, Dong-chan looked at the team leader with a serious expression. He said that a new case had been transferred from the investigation department and the culprit was someone they couldn't have imagined. At the same time, So-min was in the car with Do-jin. Do-jin started complaining about not being home for days and not being able to use his phone. He begged So-min to let him use her phone for a moment. Hearing this, So-min reluctantly agreed. She turned on her phone to see if there was anything new. As soon as she turned it on, she received a series of new message notifications, including a police summons related to a phone scam. Next came a worried message from Haidam, so So-min immediately called Haidam to arrange a meeting. A short while later, the two met at a cafe. Haidam recounted how a few days earlier, someone impersonating So-min had called her. This person claimed that she had been kidnapped and taken to China and needed to borrow 30 million won to get out. Because she was worried about her friend, Haidam couldn't bear to ignore it. Finally, she asked about transferring the money. But after the transaction was complete, she received a message saying the money was lost and that it's best not to trust anyone in this world. After reading the message, So-min recognized the familiar phrase as belonging to the leader Sok-gu. After getting into the car, So-min asked Do-jin where they could find Chairman Sung. But Do-jin couldn't think of a way either. So-min then asked Do-jin to turn off his phone because they were both being followed by the police. After saying that, So-min drove to Director Kim's base. So-min went inside to search for any useful documents. After a while, she found real estate registration papers, and the name on the registration was Harian, the owner of the real estate office. Immediately, So-min went to the real estate office to confront him, but he adamantly denied everything. It wasn't until So-min showed him the registration papers and the history of multi-level marketing transactions that he finally revealed the location where Director Kim was hiding. So So-min went there. There she saw the director negotiating with a client about buying and selling real estate. After he finished talking, So-min approached him to inquire. Director Kim was surprised to see So-min. Upon meeting So-min, asked him where she could find Chairman Sung. Then she demanded that the director quickly reveal the location, otherwise, she would report his hiding place to the police. Hearing this, Director Kim was frightened and no longer resisted. The next day, Chairman Sung began receiving investors for his project, while So-min and Do-jin waited outside to prepare for the plan. Before leaving, So-min handed the walkie-talkie to Do-jin. She instructed him to tap the walkie-talkie twice to signal if anything happened. She also told him that if an hour passed and he hadn't seen her come out, he should immediately call the police. After giving these instructions, So-min got out of the car and went inside. Jong-hun was still showing the investors the project documents. After reviewing them, the investors seemed quite satisfied. However, the investors on the list were rather unfamiliar. While they were talking, Congressman Seo entered, so the investors stood up to greet him. While they were discussing business, So-min was trying to sneak into the building. She was about to pull the door open when a subordinate entered the room, forcing her to quickly dodge. The subordinate didn't think much of it and left the room immediately afterward. Taking advantage of this opportunity, So-min sneaked inside. At this time, the investors were still questioning Chairman Sung about each person on the list. However, the chairman claimed they were busy and couldn't attend. To reassure the investor, Jong-hun showed him a video of the investors on the list sending greetings, but it was actually just a product of artificial intelligence. After watching it, the investor felt more at ease. employees. Jong-hun excused himself for a moment. He went straight to the restroom to check the hidden camera in his vest. Suddenly, Yu-sang walked in and asked Jong-hun what he was doing. Jong-hun quickly ripped the camera off his shirt button and put it in his vest pocket to avoid suspicion. Yu-sung didn't suspect anything. He simply asked Jong-hun to come with him to the office because Chairman Sung wanted to see him. Seeing the file in Yu-sung's hand, Jong-hun curiously asked what it was. But Yu-sung couldn't reveal anything because it was the chairman's order. Just as So-min entered the hallway, Yu-sung returned to his office with Jong-hun. So-min tapped on the intercom to ask if anything was wrong with Do-jin's side, but strangely no one responded. As soon as Yu-sung entered the office, he handed the file to Chairman Sung. Jong-hun was very worried because he didn't know what the document contained. After reviewing it, Chairman Sung placed the investor's personal information on the desk. It turned out the investor was a police officer working at the Songdan police station in the fraud prevention department. Before the investor could even clear his name, Chairman Sung signaled Yu-sung to deal with him right in front of everyone. Even though Congressman So was shouting for them to stop, it was too late. After the matter was settled, Chairman Sung turned to question Jong-hun, who hastily explained that he was not involved. Just as the tension was building, Sok-gu entered with So-min and Do-jin. It turned out that Director Kim had informed Sok that So-min was on her way to see the chairman. Not only that, he had seen a car parked in front of the company and immediately went to the car and beat Do-jin up. While Jong-hun was still confused, Chairman Sung calmly stated that he had long known Jong-hun was untrustworthy. Jong-hun continued to try to explain that he was not involved. Chairman Sung then signaled Yu-sung to drag Jong-hun to So-min. Waiting until Yu-sung pulled out a knife, Chairman Sung declared that So-min and Do-jin had ruined a very important contract for him today, and he wanted Jong-hun to prove his loyalty. If Jong-hun succeeded, one of the other two would survive and return home. Jong-hun had no choice but to tremblingly grab the knife and slowly approach where So-min was standing. But at that moment, So-min pulled out her phone and said she was also being chased by the police. There was a commotion outside. It was the police force led by the captain. Yu-sung peeked out to check the situation, then ran inside and pulled Chairman Sung to safety. Congressman So also hurried after them. Sok-gu, enraged, snatched the knife to stab So-min. Jong-hun took the blow for So-min. Afterwards, Sok-gu quickly grabbed the hidden camera and escaped. Jong-hun, in pain, apologized to So-min for having taken advantage of her before. When the police raided the place, there was no one left except So-min's group, so the captain immediately called for an ambulance to take Jong-hun away. At the same time, Chairman Sung and Congressman So returned to their hiding place. Congressman Seo was extremely worried because an investor had died earlier, so the police would definitely investigate, and if that happened, his political career would be ruined. Chairman Sung became increasingly angry as he listened. He threw his teacup against the wall. He said that the secretary, under the influence of drugs, had accidentally killed an investor, and the person who sold him the drugs was Sok-gu. They, on the other hand, were out on a schedule and knew nothing about it. Chairman Sung spoke while banging on his chair in anger. He was unaware that Sok-gu was standing behind the cabinet and had heard everything. Congressman So feared that the police might be infiltrating the place, and sooner or later everything would be exposed. Chairman Sung reassured Congressman So that Jong-hun was currently in a coma in the hospital, and they only needed to ensure he wouldn't wake up again. After saying this, Chairman Sung stood up and escorted Congressman Seo out. The congressman didn't dare stay any longer. Outside, Congressman Seo instructed his secretary to prepare everything, from strategic meetings to legal consultations, to be ready for whatever might happen. Furthermore, Congressman Seo asked his secretary to summon Director Park to see him. Just as he finished speaking, Chairman Sung's subordinate walked past and entered the office. Chairman Sung ordered the subordinate to find the hospital where Jong-hun was staying, and then kill Sok-gu to avoid future trouble. After the subordinate left, Sok-gu appeared beside Chairman Sung. He suspected that Sok-gu had heard everything. Sok-gu had come to give Chairman Sung the hidden camera. He demanded that Chairman Sung relinquish his chairmanship to him. Chairman Sung scoffed, dismissing the hidden camera as worthless. Sok-gu then directly opened the video footage extracted from the hidden camera. Jong-hun had used a hidden camera in his shirt button to record all of Chairman Sung's sinful actions. After watching the video, Chairman Sung merely chuckled with amusement, then stated that he had no reason to agree to the offer. After all, Sok-gu had always coveted Chairman Sung's position. However, Chairman Sung believed Sok-gu wasn't even capable of holding his current position. Hearing this, Sok-gu became even more enraged. He had done all sorts of wicked things to show his loyalty to Chairman Sung, yet the chairman could easily discard him at any time. Chairman Sung said that from the beginning until now, Seok-gu had only ever been his pet dog. Seok-gu couldn't hold back any longer. He pulled out a knife and slashed Chairman Sung's neck. Then Seok-gu kicked him to vent his anger. After that, Seok-gu ordered his subordinates to prepare a boat to go to China immediately. Meanwhile, Director Park rushed to Congressman Seo's office. Upon meeting Congressman Seo, immediately inquired about Jong-hun's condition. When Congressman Seo learned that Jong-hun was still in a coma, he immediately rebuked Director Park. Because of Director Park's son, everyone was now in big trouble. Now Congressman Seo could no longer trust Chairman Sung, so he turned to Director Park for help. Only if Jong-hun didn't regain consciousness could Congressman Seo resolve the matter properly. At that point, Congressman Seo would nominate and support Director Park within the party. After hearing this, Director Park didn't know how to respond to this moment. So Min was still in the hospital room, observing Jong-hun. She was tidying up Jong-hun's clothes when she accidentally noticed a tear in the fabric near a button, but she didn't think much of it and just bent down to pick up Jong-hun's wallet to examine it. Then she saw a small photo that Jong-hun had tucked inside. So Min glanced at Jong-hun and put the photo back in his wallet. Chief Park had just arrived and was standing outside looking in, but then he left. As So-min left the hospital, she saw him getting into his car, making her even more confused about what Chief Park was planning. The next day, Seongin Police Station was busy dealing with the case. Yoo-sun stubbornly refused to confess the truth. He kept saying that he had overdosed on methamphetamine and couldn't remember anything. Dong-chan didn't understand why this guy was so stubborn. He also told Yoo-sun that Chairman Sung had died the previous day. Hearing this, Yoo-sun froze in surprise. At the same time, the secretary entered Chief Park's office. He asked the chief if he had ever heard the Dialogue with the Chief program. Then, he showed Chief Park his tablet. It contained online articles about real estate disruption in a tourist area, and people were demanding an investigation into those involved. After reading them, Chief Park became furious. He ordered his secretary to silence the people in the relevant department and find out who had posted the articles. The secretary nodded in agreement and quickly left. Immediately afterward, Chief Park hurriedly left the station. But before he could get into his car, So-min appeared. The two then sat in the car and had a private conversation. So-min asked why Chief Park hadn't visited the hospital room yesterday. Chief Park replied that his relationship with his son had ended. Hearing this, So-min understood that Chief Park had no intention of confessing. If that were the case, she would have to expose him herself. Then she took out a lighter from her pocket. She said it was found on the clothes Chief Park had worn that day. Having a corrupt police officer as a father must have caused Jong-hun a lot of suffering. The more So-min spoke, the more annoyed Chief Park became, so he told her to shut up, but So-min didn't care. She took out a picture from her pocket and said that even if Jong-hun wanted to hate his father, he couldn't because that was his family. Perhaps that's why Jong-hun still loved his father. After saying this, So-min left the picture and went outside. Just as she got outside, she received a call. After finishing the call, she hurriedly ran off. Chief Park sat in his car, looking at the old picture of him and his son. He sighed, not knowing what to do. Meanwhile, So-min went to the police station to see the captain. She learned that the server the suspect used for the scam had been identified. The police force was also checking if there were any other victims. Because they still lacked concrete evidence, identifying the suspect was proving difficult. Since yesterday, the IP address hadn't been in the country, so it was highly likely the suspect had fled abroad. At this point, Dong-chan approached and informed the captain that Yoo-sung hadn't provided any further information, so he could only sigh in frustration. Afterward, the two said goodbye to So-min and went inside. As So-min walked along, thinking about Chairman Sung's death, Dong-chan suddenly ran up to ask about Jong-hun's condition. They had to wait until Jong-hun woke up before they could deal with these scoundrels. Now they could only suspect, but had no evidence. Jong-hun must have collected evidence, but no matter how thoroughly they searched the scene, they found nothing. Maybe the evidence was too small for anyone to see, or maybe someone took it away. Dong-chan asked So-min to contact him when Jong-hun woke up. Then he said goodbye and went inside. So-min stood there thinking about the tear in Jong-hun's shirt. Then she expressed to Do-jin her desire to go to China because the evidence Jong-hun had collected had been taken by Seok-gu. After hearing this, Do-jin asked So-min what she wanted him to do. So-min told him to recreate Kai-soon. Meanwhile, Seok-gu had returned to his base in China. As soon as he entered, his subordinates loudly called out, "Chairman!" Seok Seok-gu couldn't help but laugh gleefully. The Chinese manager was a new subordinate who replaced Yu Sum. His nickname was Black Dragon. He had captured the person and brought them back as requested by Seok-gu, vowing to do everything the leader assigned him. Seok-gu was very pleased to hear this. He patted Black Dragon on the shoulder to encourage him. Then Seok-gu went into his office and sat in the chairman's chair he had long dreamed of. He hadn't even had time to enjoy it when an account named Kai-soon sent a message announcing that she would be coming to China and that Seok-gu's death was imminent. Seok-gu was still confused when the account called him via video. He put on his headphones and accepted the call. Upon seeing Kai-soon, he was speechless with surprise, as he had thought Kai-soon had been killed by Director Kim long ago. Kai-soon played a recording of Chairman Sun's words and his will, stating that Chairman Sun would bequeath all his assets to Kai-soon. Seok-gu became enraged. He ripped off his headphones and went to deal with Director Kim. The director could only apologize repeatedly for messing things up. Seok-gu beat Director Kim up. Then Seok-gu asked if the director had followed Kai-soon's orders to send So-min to sabotage him. Director Kim shook his head, saying he knew nothing. So Seok-gu stood up, grabbed a stick, and prepared to hit him again. But Director Kim said that Kai-soon had suddenly made a threatening video call, and that he had never seen Kai-soon's face in person. After hearing this, Seok-gu understood the situation. He patted Director Kim on the head, showing concern, and then ordered his subordinates to finish off the director. Director Kim had his little finger chopped off. Next, Seok-gu ordered Black Dragon to go to South Korea to assassinate someone. Black Dragon nodded in agreement and left. Seok-gu returned to his office to continue talking with Kai-soon. He asked her what she wanted. Hearing this, So-min was overjoyed, thinking Seok-gu had fallen into her trap. She immediately offered to overlook the fact that Seok-gu had killed Chairman Sun in exchange for him relinquishing his position as chairman. Seok-gu pretended to agree to the offer, then requested a meeting. He said he would arrive at Wari Port at 9 p.m. if they went now, and instructed her to come alone. After the agreement was reached, Seok-gu quickly hung up. So-min hurriedly took a taxi to the meeting point, unaware that Jong-hun's life was in danger. Later, Black Dragon arrived at the hospital where Jong-hun was staying. He disguised himself as a patient. Waiting until the guard left, Black Dragon sneaked into the ward to assassinate Jong-hun. But when Black Dragon pulled back the blanket, he found no one on the bed. Suddenly, someone entered from outside and approached Black Dragon. Meanwhile, So-min arrived at the meeting point. There wasn't a soul around. While searching, So-min was suddenly knocked unconscious. She was then taken to a base in China by Seok-gu's henchmen. Seok-gu seemed pleased to finally meet Mi Yang's daughter. Seeing So-min helpless, Seok-gu suggested they have a frank conversation. He asked if she wanted to know her mother's expression before she died, or her father's loan limit. If not, he would tell her a new plan, because from now on, those around her would gradually suffer. So-min became enraged. She wanted to kill this bastard, but she was beaten up by Seok's henchmen. Seok-gu quickly searched for So-min's contact list. After selecting a target, he used So-min's voice to make the call. He impersonated So-min, pretending to cry and claiming she had been kidnapped and desperately needed money to escape. So-min's aunt overheard a few sentences and realized it was a phone scam. Seok-gu then made a video call so she could witness her niece being held captive. So-min was then tied up and locked in a cell. The scammers used So-min's voice to extort money from others. After being locked up for a day, So-min was dragged out to face Seok-gu. She watched him show off the money he had earned that day using her voice. Just then, Black Dragon arrived. He reported that he had completed his assigned task and even gave Seok-gu the victim's little finger as proof. Seok-gu excitedly showed it to So-min, then complimented Jong-hun's finger, saying it was just as beautiful. So-min could only scream in helplessness. After putting the new little finger back in the box, Seok-gu gave Black Dragon a new assignment. That was the scene of dealing with So-min right in front of Seok-gu. Black Dragon immediately drew his knife and advanced towards So-min, but then unexpectedly lunged at Seok-gu. His henchmen rushed to stop Black Dragon, but one of them was threatened with the knife to his neck. Before Seok-gu could understand what was happening, Mrs. In suddenly opened the door and entered with two henchmen. Mrs. In said it was time to decide life and death. She seemed very sad that Seok-gu had forgotten. After hearing this, Seok-gu gradually realized that the person standing in front of him was Kai-soon. It turned out that Jong-hun had previously investigated Mrs. In's true identity because she and Kai-soon had identical fingerprints. After learning the truth, Jong-hun called Mrs. In to arrange a meeting, and the person who entered the hospital room opposite Black Dragon was Mrs. In. To prove it, Mrs. In even rolled up her sleeve to reveal a tattoo of the Il-seong gang. Black Dragon instinctively lowered his knife in surprise. That's also the reason why Black Dragon attacked Seok-gu. Because of Seok-gu's existence, Kai-soon had to live a miserable life in Korea. She didn't dare do anything openly for fear of affecting her son. But now it was time for her to put an end to everything. After saying that, Kai-soon glanced and signaled to Black Dragon. Black Dragon rushed straight to Seok-gu and stabbed him deeply in the stomach. Taking advantage of the moment when his subordinates were dealing with Black Dragon, Seok-gu clutched his wound and ran away. So-min quickly chased after Seok-gu. At this time, Jong-hun and the police also arrived. Seok-gu returned to his private office to retrieve the memory card from the hidden camera, but So-min found him and demanded the memory card back. Seok-gu wasn't going to give up so easily, so he put the memory card into a glass of wine and drank it all. Afterward, he challenged So-min to retrieve the memory card. As So-min lunged forward, Seok-gu grabbed a vase and smashed it over her head. So-min was stunned and lost her balance. Then Seok-gu pulled a knife from his belt and attacked. So-min tried to fight back. After a while, Seok-gu gained the upper hand. He pinned So-min to the table and stabbed her with the knife. While So-min held Seok-gu's hand, he told her that her mother had begged him not to kill her. He told So-min to try, but So-min unexpectedly squeezed the wound in his stomach. The gang leader could only cry out in pain. Then So-min hit him hard on the head. After pushing Seok-gu aside, So-min picked up the knife and without hesitation stabbed him. But that wasn't enough for the tragic deaths of her parents, so So-min furiously stabbed the bastard many more times. Only when So-min regained her composure did she recoil in fear. At that moment, Jong-hoon and the other police officers rushed inside. Seeing the scene, Jong-hoon immediately ran to support So-min. Seok-gu breathed his last in agony. This incident caused a strong reaction from the South Korean public. There were many conflicting opinions about So-min's act of taking revenge on the leader of the transnational fraud organization. Some argued that her actions were a way of resolving a problem that the police and judicial authorities could not solve. To prevent such incidents from happening again, the government needs to amend the law to protect victims. Others argued that if the law is not properly enforced, society will descend into chaos. Since individuals cannot replace the law, ignoring judicial procedures is unacceptable. Additionally, the media reported that Director Park had confessed to charges of political collusion and illegal business practices. He apologized and bowed before the entire nation. Congressman Seo was also arrested and is currently under investigation by the prosecutor's office. Jong-hoon is considered a hero for bringing corrupt officials to justice. After everything concluded, Jong-hoon went to the beach to talk with So-min. Because So-min didn't know how she should live her life, Jong-hoon advised her to continue living her own way and at her own pace. If the path had ended, she should create a new one. If she didn't want to take a path, she shouldn't. Not taking a path that many people take doesn't mean it's wrong or a failure. What he wanted to say was that she should act according to her own will, just as she always has. No matter what, he will always support her. After hearing this, So-min simply thanked Jong-hoon with a smile. 5 years later, So-min finally finished her prison sentence. From now on, she could go out and live her own life. She returned to her familiar home and wiped the dust off her family photos. Suddenly, Do-jin called and asked if she had seen his gift. He had secretly slipped it into her bag when they met earlier. So-min rummaged through her bag and found a small gift box containing a USB drive. Do-jin repeated his familiar phrase, "A moment of curiosity is worth 500 won." So-min quickly hung up to avoid hearing Do-jin's nonsense. She plugged the USB into her laptop and played the video. It turned out to be a video of her mother talking. The images and sound were all created by Do-jin. In the video, Mi-yang said that she knew her daughter had worked hard for her all this time. She only wanted to bring happiness to her daughter, but in the end, she only caused So-min heartache. She thought she had given her daughter so much love, but in reality, she was the one receiving the love. So-min's very existence was happiness and love for her. Hearing these words, So-min couldn't hold back her tears. She even reproached her mother for not appearing in her dreams. So-min's mother gently continued, saying that she had received so much from her daughter that she felt very guilty. She also apologized for not taking good care of So-min and for opposing her daughter's dream of becoming an actress. In the end, she couldn't even go to see her daughter perform once. Therefore, she sincerely apologized to So-min. Mi-yang only wanted to ask if So-min were reborn again. Would she want to be Mi-yang's daughter? Because at that time, Mi-yang was determined to try to be a better mother. So-min has now also taken on the leading role in her own life, so her mother hopes she will live a truly brilliant life. At the end of the video, her mother said she loved her daughter very much. So-min also said that she loved her mother very much. She sat in front of the laptop screen, sobbing uncontrollably. But deep down, she understood that everything was finally over, and it was time for her to stand up and continue on the path she had chosen. The film ends here. Thank you for your interest and for watching. Goodbye, and see you again.